All right, welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. Josh Burton, welcome to the show.
Scott, it's a pleasure to be here. Heard nothing but great things about you. And, we've spoken a couple times on the phone, and I've been looking forward to this podcast with you for months now. You know, we've spent hours on the phone discussing life and health and wellness and our mutual philosophies. And really happy to be here, man.
So first, let me thank you for saying that. I am too. Thanks for making the trip out to do this today. We got you in, and we got to get you back out on a flight to get home with the family here in a couple of hours. But I think what you just said there, just about there's some values alignment, right, that exists there, and then there's certainly some goals alignment that exists there too, and just in terms of what you're trying to do in the world, right, and what you've done professionally, but what you're doing professionally now, and the people that you're trying to help, and we're going to get into that today. And that's all this podcast has ever been. So it just is fitting that we be sitting across from one another. And this never happens without being connected, through some very specific points of connection. I was just sharing with you off air about how grateful I am that I get these kinds of opportunities. It does not get past me how fortunate I am to have so many good friends and good places that know good people that have the same goals and values alignment. Whatever it is that they're doing, but they can all, there's an anchor there in the middle of good people just trying to do good things. And that's how this happened today. So there's a lot for us to talk about, and unpack today. So, but let's just get it kicked off with the first question, which is, how'd you sleep last night?
Actually, I did not sleep as great as I had hoped to.
Okay.
I was honestly a little anxious about,
Okay. That's why I asked.
Early morning flights and just coming out here in general. Like, I'm not a big podcast guy, and social media in general does not like me. So, but again, it's divine, as you mentioned, because our very small group of friends, there's a lot of connect the dots there, and happy to be here with you.
Yeah, man.
My sleep was not great last night.
Well, I set that question up because we're going to talk about sleep and how important that is. But you just touched on something, and that is, it's never going to be perfect, right? Shit happens and things come up, and I'm the same way. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I was up quite later than I would have typically been up last night, doing a little bit of scrolling through some things that I wanted to talk to you about, because I wanted to make sure we were hitting some of the finer points on some of the topics today. We're going to be talking about taking care of yourself, right? Yeah. And how to do that. And I think people can very much overcomplicate this, and they can also get lost in the sauce with some basic things they need to be doing. But sleep is one of those things that things are anchored on, and we'll get into that. But before we start getting down into the nitty gritty of some of the topics that you and I had talked about discussing, maybe just give people a little bit of a background on you. You can give this in whatever version you want. I tell this to everybody. You can start and finish it wherever you want. You just might have to be patient with me because I may time you out to get a little clarification on something. But to maybe lay the groundwork and some context for some of the stuff we're going to talk about, maybe you just give us a little bit of your background and catch people up.
Yeah, I mean, you got quite a different audience out here, and for those that really want to know my full story, 6 months ago or so, I did an episode with Brent Tucker on Anti-Hero. So you can hear my funny life story there. But in a nutshell, man, I did 23 years Army Special Ops, between half my time in Ranger Regiment and the other half in the Special Missions Unit out of Bragg. Did a lot of deployments, a lot of time overseas. I could be citizens and Iraq, Afghanistan, and parts of Africa.
For as much time as you spent there?
Yeah. So yeah, man, that was my life growing up. And, at some point you're just beat down mentally and physically, and you decide it's time to hang up the guns and move on.
Well, let's talk about that just for a second. Like, how do you know? It's got to be tough, man.
I joke about this, but I knew a couple years before I actually did it.
Okay.
I was just in a really bad spot. I look back, and the catalyst for me was November 2014. I was in Mali, of all places, and I got a bad case of malaria and almost died from it.
Wow.
But when I came back home is when it really hit me. And it was just the worst timing of my life. My first daughter was born, and the next day, I got home from deployment 2 days before her birth. The next day, I was in the hospital for what ended up being like 6 to 9 months.
Wow. Okay.
So the meds
I'd forgotten that part of the story, man. I do remember hearing the story, but hold on a second. I mean, no vaccination for
I was taking, well, there was no vaccine back then for malaria. Apparently there is now, but you take doxycycline and then methylquin and a couple other drugs they give you. Basically, you take doxy while you're in country, and then afterwards, when you deploy home, they give you the stronger stuff to kill it off, the parasite off in your liver.
It's a gnarly one, yeah.
Which is what nailed me. It killed my liver almost.
Yeah.
So I was at Duke and Mayo Clinic and all the top hospitals across America for the next 6 to 9 months getting my
dialysis.
No, I didn't have to do liver dialysis because they basically said you got to wait for your body to kick all this
stuff out. Yep.
And I went from 180, 85 pounds down to 120 in a month.
Wow.
I was bright yellow, jaundice, and just had this bad rashes all over my body from all the toxins coming out my pores. I almost killed myself a couple times. It was bad. The only reason I didn't was because I had a brand new baby. That was my first child.
So it's interesting. The thing that saves you is the thing that practically kills you. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
All right. So a couple of years before you're feeling it, right? And then you go on this final, I assume was your final deployment, right? You come home and now you're just completely wrecked. I mean, is it safe to say this is rock bottom, or we haven't reached that yet?
Yeah. We'll get there.
Okay.
That was after retirement.
Okay.
My whole point to the malaria story was not, oh, woe me, whatever. I lost plenty of friends in combat that would have probably taken malaria over the bullet. But that was really the start of my downhill slide mentally, because that sleep deprivation for that long, I just didn't recover from it because I got better. The unit sent me off to a place to train for 2 months and put my weight back on. So physically I got better, but the sleep aspect never caught back up. And I was back into doing night ops and missions and the constant cycle of the machine, right? But by the time I took over a team, and my guys will tell you this too, like I was not in a good spot.
Not the same guy.
Yeah. And I joke, I was like Brett Favre holding on for another season.
That I can relate to.
Right. Yeah. So it was not great. And finally I decided it was time to pull the plug and go do something else.
Okay. Interesting. Like you talked about the sleep deprivation, which is part of the reason I opened up with that question. I don't think what people understand is that the brain will actually rewire itself, when you're not sleeping like that. I mean, it'll actually kill you. Yeah. The lack of sleep will actually kill you if you go on for too long. The brain has to recover, and if it's never in that point where it can, and that happens during sleep, it's the one place it does happen. Is you get in these different levels of sleep that people may, REM, non-REM type stuff that people might be sort of familiar with, but not have a full understanding of. Is you said something about there being physically you were able to get back, but that's only one part of the equation, because really the body is like an extension of the brain. And so you can, and especially if, I'm sure based on your background, like being physical is something you're super familiar with, and your body's going to have, people call it like muscle memory or whatever. It's not really that, but at the same time, you had a high training age and your body's going to respond to putting more calories back in the system, right? Hitting the weights again,
comes back quick.
It comes back probably pretty quick. And so like physically from the outside, you're looking at yourself going, hey, I'm back, right? Like my pants are not falling down when I'm I don't have to belt it, belt my pants up the same way, or it was after I lose 20 pounds or whatever it was, or however many pounds it was, right? Like I'm pushing the same weights again, I'm able to run the mile times, whatever the thing is, right? I'm able to handle the physical aspect of this, which is interesting. And I think there's we start to get into how the brain rewires itself, but also more specifically, like hormone reactions and chemical reactions that you had trained your body to be able to get through, I'm sure, through stress management, right? And how to deal with certain things. This is funny.
That's what they train us for.
Exactly. It's like
austere environments, up for days at a time. Yeah. You still got to go do a hostage rescue.
That becomes normal. That becomes like the new normal, right? And then, so there's this funny interplay that's going on between like the hormones in your body and what you should be getting from certain things and what you're not. Like most people I don't think recognize kind of what they're chasing in the gym is like that cortisol, right? And that's a good thing. It tells the nutrients in the body where to go, right? It switches other things on in the system to help with the recovery process and get things moving. In that kind of a training, what you're doing is constantly learning how to regulate that and bring that down. And then there's the other side of it where there's like testosterone. There's an interesting interplay there as it relates to when you start looking at the brain. I don't want to bore people with this, but just kind of setting the stage, like the amygdala, which is like that fear, that part of the brain that'll tell you to be afraid of this or help you make a better decision.
Your fight
or flight,
yeah.
Right? And
no, I don't think it bores people because everybody out there's heard of this stuff before. And honestly, it took me a long time to actually understand all of it. And, you brought up cortisol, right? Everybody thinks cortisol is the devil, but it's really not.
It's the one that makes you fat.
Yeah.
Right.
But
excuse me.
My wife's a doctor and she deals with hormones specifically. Okay. And she's taught me a ton the last few years, but in my own journey, I've figured it out as well. But cortisol, you need cortisol in the morning when you first wake up. You want that shit to spike.
It's requirement.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But people don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
They think cortisol's bad. It's belly fat.
Right.
But the key is, and what we're going to talk about later, is bringing that down throughout the day. You want the cortisol spike in the morning first thing, but you want to bring it down after lunch and continue to bring it down all the way through sleep. And you want it to be at your lowest point during your deep sleep and your REM. And then you spike it again the next morning.
That's where you need to be. And anytime you're dialing up one system, you're dialing down another system.
Absolutely.
There's interplay across everything. And so again, I think when you described, your career and all the things, the night ops, the deployments, probably a lot of sleepless nights, probably a lot of sleepless days, right? Where you're going on stuff. There's this wild fluctuation that's going on for years and years and years and years. And then some of that is, some of that fluctuation is going to be stimulated by the thing that you're doing, right? You go into some type of a mission set, right? You go out there and there's some type of a stress response, but yours might be a little less than the average.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I would say that's a key to talk about because at some point when you do something enough, that goes away. Mm-hmm. My fight or flight, and most of the guys in the unit that had been in enough deployments, it's gone. You could walk up to me with a gun right now. I'm not going to think twice.
Heart rate doesn't go up a single beat.
Nothing.
Yep.
And that was just built in for years, but that's not good.
No, it isn't.
It keeps you in a high stress environment. You're running on the red the whole time.
Yeah. So you're metering that thing out on the tachometer on your car is just at red line all the time. So after a while, it again, that's a machine. You're not a machine. You are in a sense, but there's a nervous system there. There's a lot of chemicals that
CNS overload.
All of that all the time. That's not a good thing. And so weird things start to happen. Like we start to seek things that give us that response, behaviors, activities.
And hence my downfall.
All right. So again, kind of setting the stage without getting too deep into it too soon. But I think, again, just going back to your time in the hospital and then coming out, kind of trying to build yourself back and then recognizing I'm not the same. I actually have an interesting story. I don't know if I was sharing this with you on a call that we were on or another time. So a very good friend of mine he's now a chiropractor, but before that he was an engineer, computer engineer. And this is kind of he was also an extreme athlete kind of guy before, right? Motorcycles, a lot of motorcycles in his life. I think even a little skydiving. And, anyhow, he was one of those guys who was kind of full tilt all the time, but a computer engineer in that, coding and programming and that kind of thing, super smart. He was working for a big company. Well, he was also riding his motorcycles and motocross and competing, doing some amateur stuff, trying to kind of work his way up as an amateur / pro. So he's kind of leading this really interesting life. So he's got this shop like at his house, right, where he's got his bikes and he's working on them constantly. And there's a kid that's kind of in the neighborhood that's trying to, that really loves motorcycles, and his dad's not really kind of involved in his life. So he kind of took him under his wing, and, he'd take him out riding or whatnot. And then he would also, was teaching him how to work on the bikes. And, part of that deal was you're going to clean the shop, right? And kept him out of trouble and, got him around the tools, and he got to watch what my buddy was doing with his stuff. And Anyway, one night he's in there cleaning and the kid puts gasoline in the solvent tank. So my friend comes in the next day to do a little welding, and he sparks up the welder and the fumes flash. Long story short, he gets burnt over 80% of his body. He spends the next 18 months in the burn unit. It was bad, real bad. So he goes to the burn unit, goes through his recovery, comes out the other side, and he's ready to go back to work, right? He's broke right now because he's spent the last 18 months. He's had to have his family take care of him. He's been, in his words, a burden to the people in his life. He's like, I got to get myself back on my feet here. So he starts to interview again for jobs, and he's recognizing something's not right. Like, he's not able to answer the questions the same way. He's not able to access the information the same way he did, albeit he was still kind of playing around a little bit while he was in his hospital bed where he could, and things like that. And he recognized his brain had rewired itself due to the trauma and the things that he had been through. When I say trauma, that's a very broad term. I think people kind of misconstrue that. There was physical, psychological, emotional, trauma at a deep level, but the experience itself had rewired his brain, and he recognized real fast, I am not the same guy. And he wanted to know more about this because people couldn't explain this to him. He didn't know. So he started to dig into this much, much deeper, ultimately led him into neurology, and then ultimately the world of chiropractic. And so he ultimately becomes a chiropractor. He's a fantastic chiropractor, but also understands neurology at a deep level, and that had to start with him understanding his own problem and getting answers to things that people couldn't give him a clear answer on. They were giving him kind of the cleanest dirty shirt might be the right answer. Like, this is kind of what's happening, and here you go. And that he wasn't satisfied with that, so he needed to learn deeper. But that was not before a lot of things had to get really bad for him in his life. Relationships, just broke financially.
It's got to break you.
It broke him.
Yeah.
And anyway, he came back the other side. But again, go back to the rewiring of the brain.
Well, there's a lot of studies out about that now, and it's really starting to gain a lot of traction. But the best analogy I've heard lately is, you think about a ski slope, or when it snows out, and the first cars that drive through the snow, and then everybody else follows their tracks. That's what your brain looks like. Mm-hmm. You're creating those tracks in your brain with the neurons and the neuroplasticity, and they're kind of embedded. But that's not to say you can't put it in 4-wheel drive and change that lane over and make fresh tracks in your brain, and rewire and reconnect those. So if you think about it that way, it's absolutely possible. I am no doubt I've done that to my own brain over the years, and it's taken a lot of work, but there are ways to do it.
Yeah. It's the same way that makes you so good at the job that you did, right? Like, you're just laying down these tracks. This is what we do, whether that's a tactic or a specific knowledge in something, or the way you handle a particular task or whatever. Everybody's being wired to do this thing at the very highest level, almost automatic.
You know what? They put in the work to do it.
Yeah.
That's the number one
repetitions,
thing. You still have to put the work in.
It's reps and volume, right? So, and then there's a certain amount of intensity that comes into that. And so it's the interesting part about coming out the other side of this, which we can kind of talk about, but all that work that went into that made you as good as an operator, right? If we're going to use that word, as you were, right? It's the exact same process, right? In terms of the brain wiring itself to be very good at this. We do these things, we do it this way, we wire ourselves up to be able to do this. And so when something else comes up, something pops into the equation that might be a little bit out of the ordinary, it's okay, because it's almost like it's happening in the background, right? All this stuff is happening in the background. And it took a lot of reps, right? A lot of sets, a lot of intensity in order to get it there over and over and over again. And a lot of experiences of being hit with the things in the side of the head, so to speak, to understand how to operate through that, right? Distraction, right?
Yeah. But Scott, you'll appreciate this, because a lot of guys have asked me throughout my life and my career, you came from Ranger Regiment and you moved up to the elite unit. What do they teach you up there that's so much better? What's the sorcery or the magic
secret
behind the way you guys do CQB? I'm like, there isn't one. We did the same exact CQB in Ranger Regiment, and every other infantry unit out in SF and everybody else does. We just do it better because we practice the basics. We master the basics. And that's what it takes, is mastery of the basics to be an expert in anything. And it's the 10,000 hour rule, right? No matter if you're doing CQB or you're out on the range shooting, no matter what it is, your hobby, you have to put at least 10,000 hours in it before you can consider mastering it, anything in life.
I think one of the takeaways I get from that, because that's what I've learned too. And they talk about being the jack of all trades, master of none kind of paradigm, if you want to call it that, where you have to know a lot of things, right? And so when we talk about fitness, health, wellness, emotional, physical, psychological, it's very complex, man. And you could dig yourself into a lot of rabbit holes trying to know all the things. And I think that's a real challenge for people now, particularly in this age of information we're in, where they're
overload.
It's too much.
Yeah.
We're not built, we're not wired up to be able to handle that much. Yet you get a certain type, that wants to know everything and wants to be an expert at everything. Wants to be better. And I appreciate that. Like I do. I'm one of those guys, like I'm a nerd. Like it's the whole impetus for the show. Like I just want to know more, but I'm also not pretending that I know everything. And there's the interesting part about it is in the attempt to do so, you learn so many things so much about so many things. You learn that there's really at no point where you ever reach the end, right? There's no end state.
And there's no right answer.
There isn't.
It's kind of like leadership, man. I had a lot of great leaders throughout my career, and I didn't always agree with all of them.
Oh, I'm sure.
But you pick and choose certain attributes from each one of them.
Yep.
And that's kind of what develops you as your character and your leadership and as a person, right? And how you're going to lead when you're in charge someday. Because everybody has their great attributes and you can pull from that. But you're right, man. There's 100 different people on Instagram telling me how to parent better.
Yep.
And that's one thing I'm always working on, because, man, I want to be the best dad I can be and husband. And, that's why I started on this journey a couple years ago. We'll jump into that, because that was the impetus for Elevated Operator, was to help people. But also, I made up my mind on my 47th birthday. I was in a bar in Australia drinking with my buddies. And I said, you know what? I've had enough. I'm done with alcohol. It's ruled my life since I was like 14 years old, and tobacco too.
Part of the culture though, too, right?
It was. Yep. It was. Absolutely. And I'm not blaming anybody, and I'm not preaching about alcohol. For me, it was the best decision. And I'm just sorry to myself personally that it took me 47 years to get it
figured out.
Yeah, to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I made the decision. I wanted to optimize myself. I don't know how much longer I'm going to live, but I want these next years to be the best of my life. I want to be the best person, husband, father that I can be. And alcohol is in the way of that. So I started Elevated Operator. I switched up my life. I changed those tracks in my brain, the way I thought. And I went back to the basics.
Yep. So it's so interesting. I think about this, and so there's a new mission, but it's really, it's a new mission, right? And you're still the same guy. You just have to refocus.
I hope I'm not the same guy, honestly.
Well, okay. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
From a human being perspective, you're the same human being, but things are different now.
Yeah. I run into people all the time, because I still work in the government space, and I run into people I was privates with, or I might have been their squad leader when they were private 25 years ago. And when I see them, I want them to think differently of me now. Obviously, we're much older and wiser, but I'm not the guy I was even 3 years ago.
I love that.
Yeah. I don't feel like I am. I've done a lot of work to make myself better. And I feel like I'm a much better person now.
So that I can get on board with. Let me kind of step back from that statement a little bit, in that the change just kind of layers onto you being a better person. It's not about trying to completely change who you are. It's trying to be better at what you're capable of being better at. And again, just taking it back to the fundamental stuff and people kind of getting lost in the weeds and the sauce. What ends up happening there is they kind of latch onto a thing or a way that gets them through or makes them feel confident. And sometimes I think that confidence can be a little overinflated about the things they know or they don't know or what the actual trick is. They often end up looking for like a magic bullet to fix the things in the complexity of things that happen, whether that's in the brain, the body, right? The emotional sense.
The quick fix.
The quick fix. It's almost that. It almost starts with, I think every single human being goes through that at some point, right? And it makes sense. I think we are kind of wired that way. Like we're looking for the answer. And like if I don't have to suffer or go through any pain or any hardship in order to get the answer that I need to come out better, then that's what I'm going to choose. That just makes perfect sense. The reality of it is it's almost never like that. And the reality is there's no one size fits all. So there's many ways to solving problems. And I know that's a discussion that we've had before, but what is consistent across the board is that those fundamentals have to be handled in order to be better, right? Or to get better, however you want to look at this, whatever lens you want to look at this from. So, rewinding the tape just for a second here. So we get out, right? So ultimately we get out of the military. And what are we doing during this time? Like, what are we filling our time with? And because I think this is the thing that is so common that I hear, and I'm not asking you this to rehash anything. I'm more asking this because this what I think I'm about to hear from you. And again, I have heard that it's been a bit, and I have heard that story. I've talked to you way more since that original podcast kind of came out. But there's some very common themes here, right, that come up. And within those themes, there's a thing there called denial, and like almost to a point of ignorance that happens.
Self-destruction.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like it's soul crushing when you hear this stuff. It's also at the other side, what you see is people actually come out of this stuff when they do the basic things they need to do in order to get through it. So I'm just curious, like, what are you doing to fill your time during this time?
Well, I'll say this. I was smart enough that I wanted to finish my undergrad degree while I was still in. Mm-hmm. So literally I'm signing out of the Army. I'm taking my last couple classes, 2 more classes to get my bachelor's degree in business. Rewind about a year before that, I went to a transition course. And you know, this lady I was talking with, she was like, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, I'm a DFO operator. I'm going to go do PSD for somebody, or I'm going to go back overseas and do the same shit."
Right.
She's like, "You guys are all the same."
Yep.
You know, we are all picked to be in the unit because we're not just in good shape and we could do the job, but we're also pretty smart people, higher than average. You know, they have a very strict selection process. And she's like, "You could do anything you want to do." And I said, "Okay." And then she asked me again, "If you could choose any company to work for, who would it be?" And at the time I was big into Elon and Tesla. And I said, "I want to go work at Tesla. I want to go help design cars." No engineering background.
No, nothing about this.
She's like, "Well, why don't you do it?" And so literally the next day I got on LinkedIn and I started cold emailing people. I got a response that night from the guy that ended up being my boss at Tesla.
Okay. All right. So,
and I had another bright idea because we're all high performers. I'm going to go get my master's in business at the same time. So
that makes sense.
I applied to Duke and I got in.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty decent college.
Ivy League's not too bad, dude.
Hey, funny story. It's actually not Ivy League.
Is that right?
No.
Wait, okay. So
everybody thinks it is.
Correct me. I thought it was.
No.
It's not.
There's you got Cornell and a couple other ones that are officially Ivy League, but I always thought Duke was too, but it's not.
Oh, I stand corrected then. 50 years. I thought it was. I thought it was.
It's a great university.
Not to take anything away from it, right? That means nothing.
Yeah. Anyway, I went there. I was interning at Tesla for a year. Loved it. Great experience. I was getting my degree at the same time, and I was living in LA.
Mm-hmm. On the beach.
I literally signed out of the unit in February of 18, hopped in my U-Haul, drove across country. And I was living up here for the first few months, working in the factory.
Yep. It's just down the street.
Yeah. Doing some line studies on the seat line because Tesla was the only ones that made their own seats at the time.
Okay.
So they had me doing some business case studies on the line and the manufacturing process. And I was like, I am sick of driving 2 hours each way to go 8 miles in the Oakland, San Fran
nothing's
traffic.
changed. That, by the way, is the worst stretch of freeway in the world. That 880 stretches. I mean, I've driven in most major metropolitan areas in the United States and spent time there. And when I say time, matter of days for business. So having to be somewhere at 8 a.m. and being,
Get there at lunch.
Awful. Okay. So, yep.
So you get the point.
I got you.
I asked my boss, I said, hey, can I move to LA? Because I can't do this anymore. And he's like, yeah, come on down. So I got moved to the design studio, which is inside of SpaceX over there. And I would say that was the beginning of my downfall.
Feel like you're trapped in a cage or what?
There's a saying, LA is like the loneliest city in the world. It really is. I was out there by myself. I had no tribe, no buddies around. I was just going to school and working under a lot of stress. I was also going through a divorce at the time. Drinking a gallon of vodka every 2 to 3 nights.
Yikes.
In my apartment by myself, going out and partying, going on a lot of dates.
Easy to do there.
Self-destruction. Got into some drugs out there, and between the drinking and the drugs and the fucking, I was busy, and it wasn't
good busy. Yeah.
Wasn't with work, and it wasn't with school.
Yeah.
And I somehow managed to graduate because I was smart enough halfway through school that I got to get the fuck out of LA. And I did. And I moved to Phoenix because it was the easiest move. I had some friends over there. I just came back from a trip to China, packed up all my stuff, moved over to Phoenix and got an apartment. And long story short, I met my wife that weekend I moved there.
Oh, interesting.
And it changed my life. I started to work to become a better person from then on. And it hasn't been easy, man. That's been 6 years ago. It's constant work in progress.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's, again, there's never a destination there, right? It's always working on it. So let's go back to, let's peel back the layers of working, right? What the work is, right? In terms of becoming a better person. And you already mentioned, like, first off, it might mean changing your environment, like getting away from
absolutely
the things that pull you into things. It's I agree with that 100%.
Bad friends, bad relationships, bad jobs.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is.
I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day who was sending somebody, let's just say, to kind of a rehab type of situation. I don't want to get into the details of that, but their rehab situation, they're going to be away for 3 months. And I go, cool. Well, what happens when they have to come right back into the same environment? Like, what's the support system going to look like?
The reintegration.
The reintegration piece being the toughest part. And so you get in these environments that are super supportive. So I think there's two ends of this thing, right? You can get into this environment where it's very intensive, very supportive, and we're working on these very specific things where you have all the tools, you have all the resources and whatever they're available to you, and you don't have a lot of free time to do anything else except for work on yourself. And then you come back to this other environment where now you're fully responsible for that all on your own. And maybe you were given tools, maybe there were things that, you learned along the way, but it's still entirely different. And you have to kind of relearn things all over again, which obviously leaves a lot of room for falling off, whatever that is. So, but you change your environment, you go back, you meet the wife. So now there's less distraction, and there's obviously more focus, right? You got somebody there that's helping you through this. Let's go through some of the steps. Like, what are the things that you got to learn first in terms of becoming a better person and cleaning yourself up?
I had a lot of TBIs and brain injuries, as a lot of guys in our community do. A lot of anger issues. That's putting it lightly. I realized I had a problem when I literally pulled a couple people out of their car and beat the shit out of them. And I knew at that time I was going to end up in jail, and my wife was pregnant, and some things had to change. So, a friend of mine had been telling me about this, alternative medicine, plant medicine. I said, I got to do something, and I'm not going to therapy for months. I already been down that road. So I took the journey to Mexico and did some plant medicine, and it changed my life. And I continue to do that as part of my journey and self-help. And it's been a major factor in me rewiring my brain and my thought process and just my overall energy. Like I had a really bad energy to myself and like people didn't want to be around me. I was angry all the time. And now I've got my childlike personality back, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
There's joy in life.
there's joy. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I love being around my kids and my family. And like, I am on that journey to be the best person I could be.
Yeah, so there's a couple things here. Let's go all the way back to sort of the beginning of this where I was saying I didn't want to bore people with things like talking about the brain and how it rewires itself or what's going on in the amygdala, what's going on with hormones.
Right.
But there's a chemical process that's going on there. And again, we talked a little bit about your history and then you start adding alcohol, no sleep, poor behaviors. You know where to find the distraction and how to find the distraction.
That's the easy part.
It's the easiest thing to do. And again, once you get into that, again, we talked about seeking risky behaviors or seeking, let's just say, non-appropriate stuff to fill and get that rush or get that feeling of what you may be misplaced as joy, right? Which is fleeting, right? For a second, because the drug, the alcohol, the sex, any of that stuff is gone when it's over in a few minutes or an hour or whatever it happens to be,
3 seconds,
whatever, the racing the motorcycle down the freeway at 100 miles an hour, when that's over, then you're seeking the next thing. But there's a chemical process that's going on in there. And when that balance gets off, just going back to the anger piece, it's not just about you being an asshole. There are things going on in there that you've been set up for. Right. And that's not anybody's fault. It just is the way it is. And coming out of that means you need to think about what's happening physiologically. So this goes back to learning about why you're doing the things and thinking the way you're thinking and all those things.
Which is exactly what the medicine did for me. It made me It made me realize the way I was. And it got to the root cause of my entire personality. Mm-hmm. And it made me realize exactly what I have to do to change it.
Yeah. So I don't think I've had my own experience there with plant medicine, and I have to tell you, it was life altering. And I've been through a couple, right? And sometimes it only takes one and sometimes it takes many. Again, there's no one size fits all to any of this. And without getting too deep into it, here's what I will tell you. It made me aware of things that I had put, let's just say, the analogy that gets used a lot is when you stuff 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound box, that only can stay that way for so long before it gets really messy and really stinky. And then you'll do things to kind of cover that up, right? But ultimately it's still there and it's not good.
It's still stinking.
It still stinks. And when you finally can uncover that and you recognize what you've done in terms of sticking stuff into that box and not addressing it, once you're aware, right, of what that stuff is, it makes it feasible to be able to address those things. And how you address those things is important. And again, that's different for different people. So you went back to
there's a very good saying about that. Psychedelics do not do the work.
Correct.
They give you the homework.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that saying because it's absolutely true. You can journey all you want and you can see the writing on the wall. But what do you do with it afterwards?
What are you doing with that information? And then again, what are you doing to understand how to deal with that information? And I guess for me, what it was like, I never really addressed a few things that needed to be addressed. I never came to peace with that. And it made me angry, very angry.
Yep.
And that anger manifested in times and places in my life that I don't think I understood why it came up. I'm not blaming those things for that. It's all on me internally or whatever. But
there's always forgiveness.
There's that, and you have to do that for yourself, right, before you're asking anybody else to do that, which is very tough. It's very hard, particularly for the hard charger and the I can fix this type of person. The person that is very A-type and wants to do it themselves, right? I guess the reality of it for me is once I looked at it and I had to stare it in the face, right, in these experiences, then I was uber aware, right? And there's basically, if you think about your brain kind of being short-circuited, right, in a sense, what that does is it opens up the circuits so that you can go through that larger loop of figuring things out. But if you're in this short circuit, this short loop all the time, you never find your way out of that. And sometimes these are
Which manifests a lot of anger.
Tons. And again, there's chemical processes that are going on there, and these things need to be fixed. And you're the only one that can do that for you. It's not going to come from somewhere else. Now,
at some point, you're going to come into your life and you're going to say, it's time to stop making excuses. I need to own this.
Yep.
Self-accountability, right?
Yep. 100%.
And it took me a long time to get there. And I finally got there and I feel fucking great about it.
Yeah. So, again, just kind of peeling the layers back. So there's some things you're realizing about yourself. There's things you got to fix. And what were some of the things that popped off the page? Obviously, alcohol is going to be a problem, right? Like, we need to slow this down or stop this altogether. And you said, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm not here to preach about alcohol.
No, I'm not either.
I loved it, man. I had great times growing up. But
sometimes drinking less isn't the answer for
it's not
some
for
people.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's me. And most of us that are super type A, we're extremists. Mm-hmm. We're extremists in everything we do. Like, I'll race my kids brushing their teeth. Like, everything's a competition. And especially when it comes to drinking, I know myself. It took me a long time to figure it out. I can't have just one.
Yeah.
One, I will drink with the best of them.
Yeah.
And I said, enough's enough. I'm not going to have the occasional glass of wine or beer because I know right where that goes.
It's a nowhere road. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going down that rabbit hole again.
Okay. So the other part that comes along with that is, so obviously there's behaviors that come up, there's inhibitions. There's also a relaxation that comes with this. Is what alcohol does, right? Yeah. It relaxes you. It starts to downregulate the system.
But I realized it was just another excuse.
It's a Band-Aid. Yeah.
It was a Band-Aid and an excuse for me to not confront all my demons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you get to shut them off, or the drug.
Blur them out.
Yeah, blur them out. It softens the corners.
Yeah.
All right, so you come out of that. The other thing it does is it impacts
sleep. Really badly.
So let's talk about this. Like, so let's rewind the tape. Like, if you go back to before this part of the journey, talk about your awareness of your sleep previous to this. Like, were you even cognizant of it, or was just like, we don't sleep, I don't sleep,
That was part of our career, man. Like, as a young guy, 18-year-old in Ranger Battalion, like, that's the first thing you do is go to Ranger school as a squared away guy. You're doing 3 to 4 months of sleep deprivation leadership training. They purposely keep you up for weeks at a time, feed you very little, and then they expect you to go out and lead troops in the field and get a go.
It's a battle of attrition. Yeah.
And that's what I was taught from an 18-year-old. And then, all the way up through 20 plus years later doing missions in the unit overseas, like, it's always at night. So you're not sleeping. I can't sleep during the day. It's not me. So I was just not sleeping at all. When I got out, I was in denial. I was in that raging phase for a couple years, living in LA, doing bad shit, making bad decisions. Sleep was not a priority. And then finally, after, getting remarried and having kids, and then I'm like, I really need to fix my sleep, because I still had that everyday brain fog, where it takes you till noon to wake up and like realize what's going on for the day.
Yeah, there's things stacked on here though too, man. So go back to being an 18-year-old and going through this in Ranger Regiment. Like, literally, your frontal lobe isn't fully wired yet at 18 years old. And so you were literally laying down the tracks, right? For this is normal, right? At 18 years old, right? And then you got another 20 years in front of you.
And I can't sit here and make excuses.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. That's not why I said that. Yeah.
My mom worked third shift her whole life.
So my mom did too.
And we know plenty of law enforcement officers that work the night shift. Yep. And it sucks, man. It is not healthy for you.
Yep. It isn't. And so again, to make the point is like, to come out the other side of this and go, okay, my life's going to be normal now. I'm just going to start sleeping.
I'm going to go off in the corporate world and have a normal life and whatever. No, it doesn't work that way.
It's very unrealistic. Yeah. That's an unrealistic expectation.
But nobody talked to me about that, or even set me up for it. I had to figure it out on my own, and it's been a long journey, but that's why we're here.
Okay. So sleep's one thing. All right. What else? What else weren't you doing in life that you started doing that helped you be better?
I like you, man, you're in the fitness industry. I've always loved working out. Like, that's where I go, exercise my demons in the gym. Right. Yep. And, I got out of that for a while just cause I was too busy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. Right. With school and partying. So yeah, I had to get that back in my life. And I am very busy these days between the family and work and everything I got going on. But that is the one thing I prioritize, like my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I make it a priority no matter what I'm doing. And I'm waking up early now because my sleep's great. I get up at 6 and I go hop on the spin bike or do the rower, get my hit in the morning.
Okay.
And then I'm doing 2-a-days, man, at 48.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I'm in the best shape of my life right now.
Right.
I'm eating right, sleeping good, hit the gym around, lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
That's my optimal hours for my circadian rhythm.
The same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
the fitness
fitness was a big one for me.
Right.
And I had to be disciplined about it, just like I am with everything else in life. And I let all that stuff slip. And that's really what's important to me. It makes me a better person because, as you know, all the good hormone release you get from being active and working out. And I also realized, man, I started late with kids. I have a 3.5 and a 4.5-year-old, and I'm almost 50.
Mm-hmm.
I have to set a good example for them because that fitness is important in our family. But not only that, I got to be able to keep up with them little rascals.
Yeah, totally.
And they are animals, man. They're all over the place. I love them. But most 50-year-olds can't handle little kids.
Well, no. And part of it is they either, there's a couple things that happen. So, and again, I'm 50, right? And I've been through my 40s, I've been through my 30s, and I know what I could do in my 30s is not what I can do in my 50s now for a few reasons, right? And it's not me making excuses, it's just me being smarter about the way I approach things. But go back to the working out and the fitness piece, probably something you were pretty good at prior, right? Kind of most of your life, right? You don't become a ranger and then go to a unit and not be fit. Like this is a mandatory, thing. It just is what it is. It's the culture, but it's also like, this is how we stay alive, right? Kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a mandatory thing. You're probably pretty good at it. The thing with fitness, especially if you've been doing it, for the majority of your life and you're getting it back, like you come out of the hospital and you get your fitness back from a physical perspective, is that you're good at it and you're getting wins, right? And I think stacking wins is super important.
I agree 100%.
So that you feel like you're getting something accomplished. And again, like there's the old speech about the admiral that made the speech about making your bed every day, and so you've gotten something accomplished, and then you stack things on top of that over the day. The point is with the fitness side of things is you don't even have to be that good at it, because the fitness will almost take care of itself if you're just consistent with it.
Consistency is the key.
Yeah, right.
You know this better than anybody. Right. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
Right. Like, and you don't have to murder yourself, right?
I was that guy though. I would go murder myself.
Been there, done that.
A 3-month stretch, and then I would be like, start traveling, or I'd get injuries. Mm-hmm. I got to take 2 months off to let my elbows heal up, or my chest, or whatever. Yep. And it's not the way to do business,
right?
You know this better than anybody, man. Just consistency,
right?
Is especially at our age, right? Because you don't have to hit the gym for 3 hours a day anymore.
I have this conversation almost, I don't want to say daily, but given what I do in the business, like we have it pretty frequently. And the conversations I've had the most probably over the last 6 to 8 months are with guys that are north of 40, right? That were in really good shape at some point in their life and at some point lost track of that. And it's generally when the liability starts to stack up. And when I say that, I don't mean that negatively. It's just like, well, I got career now.
I don't have time.
I've got family. Yes. And the time piece starts to fit in there. Well, it's like, well, yeah, you're still trying to do 3-hour-a-day workouts where you're murdering yourself for 3 hours a day. Yeah, you don't have time for that. So like,
you can get a lot done in 30 to 45 minutes.
That's exactly the point. And so what they need is to reorganize their expectations and their thought process about how to get it done. The other thing is usually if you've been playing hard, right, your whole life, like you come along with some baggage comes along with that, the elbow, the knee, the back, right? The whatever, the neck, all this stuff. I've got plenty of it. And so going back to what I was saying about my 30s versus now at 50, like I recognize what those things are. It doesn't mean I can't do things and I don't make excuses for it. I just choose to do the things that I can do and that I know I need to do in order to stay up. And I stack that as a win. I don't play the comparison game to where I was when I was 30 years old. Right. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people make, especially for hopefully this isn't insulting, former action guys.
Tags.
Right. That are trying to be the same human being that they were, 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, when they've had this large gap and they're not acknowledging the things that have now been stacked onto their life and the responsibilities that they have, or reaching back to if I just do it this way, right? And well, you were being paid to be in shape. You were being paid to work out. You were being paid to eat.
It was like a professional athlete.
100%.
But I don't even want to go there because, one, I like to think I'm humble and I'm not special. I'm not. End of the day. I put my pants on one leg at a time every morning, just like you do. But to your point, Scott, I would say this applies to everybody out there in the world. And it's one of my favorite leaders, my old boss's favorite sayings was, do something.
Right.
That's all he ever used to say to us. Like, why are you standing here looking at me?
Right.
Do something.
Show up. Like, and then
just something. Show up. And even if it's for 30 minutes, man, just do something.
Yeah. I think that, again, getting back to the wins that you can stack there, like if you're just consistent and you're just doing something, things will show up. And
absolutely.
Part of this goes back to what I was saying before, is the physiological stuff that starts to change, right? And you might not notice that on the outside. You're looking for abs and arms, but what has to happen first is things on the inside need to change. So we went back to like what happens in the brain, what's happening with hormones. All those adjustment processes start to happen again. Like you talked about cortisol in the morning and how it peaks and then it starts to go off during the day, but maybe
it doesn't.
Yeah. Or it doesn't, or you hit that noontime workout and you get a little bit of a spike, but it's a good one because it's telling your body what to do with nutrients and other hormones and whatnot. And then it levels back off and then you move into the rest of your day. Those are all physiological things that are happening that you can't see. You can't,
you called me last week and I was sitting there eating breakfast and I just happened to be looking at my Aura ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love my Aura ring, by the way. Yeah. It's been almost a year now since I've had it, and I'm probably about to get rid of it because I know my body enough now and I know what it's going to say.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
And I told you this, man, you're talking about consistency and small changes. When we were on the phone that day, I happened to have my resting heart rate portion of the app open and it was mind blowing, man. The chart, I flipped it sideways. The chart from January through now in November, I could see it declining. I'm like, oh, wow. That's when I started spinning in the morning back in January. Mm-hmm. And my resting heart rate went from a 59. It's sitting at a 48 now. But you know what? It basically dropped a point per month. Do you think I would ever notice that? You would
never notice that.
I'm not measuring my heart rate all the time, but that is pretty massive. Like a 48's probably what I had back in my early 20s when I was running every day like a clown.
As a ranger.
Yeah, as a ranger, running 5 miles every day. And I'm 48 now, man. That's a pretty good resting heart rate.
Yeah, it's very good. It's not pretty good. It's excellent. When you look at, if we just took the population of America and we looked at average resting heart rates, like it's going to be north of 60 for most people. And when we're talking about that in terms of consistency is the efficiency level that you're picking up. And I don't think that people, again, they want to get to the end. They want to see that number change quickly, or they want to hit that goal or that metric, and it's not quick. And what they're not recognizing is all the other things that come along with it, because they're just looking at the metric. It's very, you're looking at that through like a microscope of
instead of the macro
level, which is like, well, what happened during that time? Well, you got more efficient. Your heart is now working less hard, right? It has to beat less times per minute to get more blood and nutrients and oxygen through the system, right? So what has that done? Well, that's going to help with recovery. That means when you do go through that hard workout, the recovery time that I spent on be more efficient at recovering. I'm also likely laying down a better vascular network. So when we talk about like healing and recovering from things, whether that be an illness or another injury, you've now just made yourself more resilient, more efficient. When you talk about sleep and how hard your body has to work at sleep in order to go through the recovery process, both at the organ level, which includes the brain, the muscular level, and all the things that you're trying to get out of, again, going back to the fitness piece, what you want to see in the mirror, right? All of this stuff is happening on the inside and it happens over time. And it doesn't mean you have to do this 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day or whatever. It's 45 minutes. If that's what you got, that's what you got. We can be super efficient here. And what are we getting out of this longer term? Instead of looking like what happened today and what did I get?
Don't jump on the scale every day.
Yeah, man.
And Scott, I would say one more thing. Mentally, there was a mental shift I had to make as well, because I was doing it before hard every day. You have to really give yourself some grace and forgiveness, right? You're not perfect. Give yourself some grace. Like, realize these changes are going to take some time. Like, I'm not going to get my stomach sewn shut tomorrow so I can lose 40 pounds in a month.
God.
You know, the healthy way to do it is a pound a month,
right,
or a pound a week, whatever they say.
A pound a week. Yeah.
And that's exactly where I didn't even take the approach. I didn't even know that going into it. I looked at it 11 months later and realized what had happened.
I think that's the key. Sorry, I think that was the point you were trying to make, is like, this is not something I was tracking on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
I never even looked at it.
You never looked at it. You just pulled up the app and here it was. And the result speaks for itself. But it goes back to everything you said. Well, back in January, I started spinning. I started getting up at, the wake up at 4 a.m. I'm on the bike by 5. This is just what I do. I do my 20, 30 minutes there. Maybe it's a little longer on zone 2 days.
15 to 30 minutes.
That's it.
Yeah.
We did that. We got it done. It's like the making your bed. Like, I got it done. I moved on, and look at the benefit of the result you get over time. Again, I think guys reach back to, like, if I'm not running 5 miles, and suffering at the end, breathing heavy, I'm not working hard enough. Right. And again, anytime I talk to, the former action guys, it's always like, well, I know what I was doing before and this is what worked for me. I'm like, well, let's just peel some layers back for a second here and look at some basic things and stop trying to track the metrics. There are some important metrics that you need to track. Right. And what you're doing is you're letting that kind of happen in the background through the ring. Right. And then ultimately we're kind of seeing over time, now what adjustments can I make? But here's the deal. Like, does your resting heart rate need to be any better? Like, probably not, right? Could it get better? Probably. But if I'm chasing that, okay, maybe I do achieve that. Like, but what extra benefit or, do I really get out of that except for satisfying my own emotional or self, gratification for moving that number? But in the process of doing that, what did I leave off the table? What did I do with my strength training? Where's my strength training at? Like, where's my time with my family at? Where's my quality of life at? What's my
it all depends on what your goals are.
Productivity. And I think that's the thing, is we're setting these lofty goals and we're chasing numbers and not looking at the larger picture and how to make it all fit in. So again, I don't want to be, obviously I could talk about the fitness thing all day long with you, but look, you're going 2 times a day, and people think, I don't have time to do 2 times a day. I just heard you say it was like 15 minutes in the morning, right? And then how long does lunchtime workout last?
Typically 45 minutes. If I got meetings, I'll squeeze in 30 minutes because it goes back to do something.
So it's an hour or less during the day.
Yeah.
Right. And that if you can't find time for that, now I think you are making excuses. Right. Like,
and I was too. Yeah. That's why I said the buck stops here. And one day you'll realize you got to stop making excuses, if for anything, for yourself.
100%. But again, going back to my word that I used before, and that's liability. You got 3 kids, man. Right. And you got a wife. Like, that's a priority. And what example are you setting for them, and how long are you going to be there for them? And what do you want to do? How do you want to spend your time? Nothing more important to me in my life at this point in my life, the time that I have and who I spend it with and how I spend it with them.
Time's the most valuable resource these days.
100%. And you think you're going to have it until you don't. So you're laying in a hospital bed. You probably realized a few things there too. All right. So coming back. So we got the fitness piece. So with that, you're starting to kind of find a groove. There's things happening chemically. There's things happening, changing your brain, starting to rewire it a little bit. You're starting to get some wins, right? Feeling your body again. You recognize you can get this done. It's starting to become a habit. As you're learning about yourself and some of the things that it takes to again, improve yourself, the self-improvement piece, taking it back to that and being better. What are some of the other things that come up for you that you're recognizing, like, this could aid me, this could help me, right? And I'm off here. Like, I'm not doing this thing, and I don't fully understand it. And that's a kind of a leading question, just kind of getting into, you talked about the plant medicine, right? And what that did for you, right? You talked about the fitness and what that's done for you. You recognize the importance of sleep, and now you're sleeping better and what that's doing for you. What other things are going on? What other things are you discovering that can make major difference in your life that maybe a lot of people don't understand about themselves, like internally?
Yeah, that's easy, man. 2 things, and we could dive into each one of them, but your support network is huge. And my wife is my support. And without her, like, I wouldn't be here. So having And I understand not everybody has that in their life, right? But they got to have a best friend or somebody they can talk to about themselves.
Mhm.
And which leads into my next thing. I recently figured out for a long time I didn't love myself.
Mm.
And that's very important. And you have to love yourself before you could truly love anything else.
Can I ask some questions on that?
Yeah, please.
So what's going on there sort of internally with the not loving yourself? Is it all the failures that you're stacking and you're looking at it going like, I suck? Or is it, and I don't think this is an or, maybe it's an and, things that you've done in your life, maybe in your career that you're not liking about yourself, that you have questions about. Talk about that a little bit, because I think there's a difference between loving yourself and then caring for yourself. Like,
it's two different things.
It's two very different things. And maybe we go down that path a little bit. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. I'm not the type of person that looks back and sees failures in my life. I look back and say, okay, I probably would have done some things differently, but everything happens for a reason in your life.
I'm with you on that.
I'm a firm believer in that. What, good or bad, bad things happen and you learn from it, right? I don't see failures in that light.
Provides an opportunity for growth.
Right? Absolutely. Right. And you learn from it. So it's more of a lesson.
Yeah. What are you looking for in that failure, I think, is the question. Like, if you're looking at the failure and you want to find the failure, that's exactly what you're going to find.
And how is your resilience coming out the other side of it?
If you're looking for an answer, or you're looking for like, what's my opportunity here, then you're going to find that. But it's all a frame of reference.
And if you're honest with yourself, you'll really find it. And I caught myself doing that a few times throughout my life.
Not being honest with yourself?
Not being honest with yourself. And you have to be. Like, if you can't hold yourself accountable, and that little voice inside your head that, your inner monologue, you at a minimum have to be honest with yourself. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, because, you got the angel and the devil, and one's just making excuses. And that's where you get led astray. And again, you make excuses for why you're not working out or taking 30 minutes. It's that way with everything in your life. And I also see working out and being in shape as a form of discipline. And I feel that if I can have the discipline to look good and feel good, then I have the same discipline to run a business successfully.
It's very similar.
It is.
Yeah, it's very similar. So I think that there's other things. So you talked about your wife, like working in the medical field, right? And I think as this is becoming a more popular topic, we're talking about people looking into what are the things that can aid me in the things I need to do, and whether that's a supplement or a medication. And one of the things you brought up is like the losing weight kind of thing, and looking for the magic bullet. And like right now it seems to be like Ozempic, huge topic, right? And
yeah, you stick yourself every morning, and next thing you know, you're dropping weight, like melting fat off.
And so there's a couple ends of that spectrum. And the way I look at it, I like to be objective. I try to look at it and I go, because I've worked with a lot of different people, a lot of levels that have lots of different issues, right? And nobody is exactly the same. There isn't a one size fits all. And I look at it at some level going, we have this whole body positivity movement. And now that there's a magic drug, like all of a sudden that's gone away.
It's not cool to be fat anymore.
Apparently not. But at the same time, I look at it and I go, for some people, they might need a life jacket here, because they're wildly on one end of this thing. And if we can give them something to kind of bring them back that could help them have a better quality of life, maybe be less of a burden to themselves and to their family and their support network, the medical insurance system, or sick care system.
That's a rabbit hole.
All of those kind of things, right? Like I could see this as being a positive, and I think this is the closest thing we've had ever, right, in human history that could help people. And again, when you look at the reality of it is, particularly here in the West, in the U.S., like we are in an epidemic of obesity.
Absolutely.
And it's creating all kinds of problems at all kinds of levels, physiologically and physically and financially. So maybe there is a thing for that, or there's something there for that. And then the other end, it's what I said, it's like a magic bullet for people. And they're like, well, I can get around the discipline and the hard work by doing this thing. And obviously I don't agree with that statement. I think there's some other things you need to try first. But for some people, they may not be able to get there, right? It's just the reality of the situation. But going back to somebody like you who's going, no, I have the physical abilities to do these things. I can make these changes.
And I don't even think it's physical. I think it's all mental. Everything's 100% in your head.
Starts there. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I'm of the mindset you can do whatever you want to do with your life. You really can. If you put your mind to something, you can make it happen. Your mind is so powerful. So powerful. You can rewire your genetics and DNA. There's scientific studies showing that now.
There's a lot of, so you're going to blow people's minds with that statement, but I don't think that's what people want to hear, right? What they want to hear is like, what's the answer, right? Like, what is the answer with the bullet or the pill? But at the same time, I want to go back to like, there's, again, going back to the physiological, the chemical processes, the neurology that exists there, and stepping back to, if you've been stressed at this level, right? So you go through a career of stress, then you go through malaria, right? More stress. Then you stress yourself out to try to come back from that. Then you go back into this, then you go into this environment when that's over. And now you're stressing yourself through not sleeping, drinking too much, a destructive
getting
behaviors.
Out of leaving the wolf pack and behind and going into the corporate world where, it's a total culture shock.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. Like I've worked there and I know I can never go back, but I had to go. And I spent a lot of time there to understand what that's like. My point is like things happen. Right. And from a personal perspective, this happened for me at about 40 years old. I was going through some similar things, divorce, new business, getting it off the ground, financially being very challenged, engaging in some behaviors I probably shouldn't have been engaging in. Certainly a lot of thought process, like there was distraction. I was over medicating with exercise, right? Trying to eat right, do all the right things, trying to look good, feel good. Not sleeping was the bigger one. Just not sleeping at all. Pardon me. And I wound up having some physiological responses that were showing up. Weird stuff like heat and cold sensitivities I'd never had before. I was breaking out in hives. Like
autoimmune stuff.
And so immediately I was like, man, I'm messed up. Something's going on here. I need to see a doctor. Like I need, and I don't see the doctor unless the only reason I have medical insurance is because if I step off the curb and I get hit by a bus, which is a catastrophic injury kind of thing, my personal physician, I pay cash. Like some of my blood work gets covered by insurance, but very little of it. I go to where I need to go. Like I said, I have medical insurance to cover like something really,
I'm with you.
Bad.
Don't want to waste time or money with the system.
Well, I tried the system though, right? So I went through that system and tried to find some answers for me, and I wasn't getting good answers. And I was getting blood work back that was saying I was quote unquote normal. You're fine. My testosterone was at 137, right? 137. Yep. So this was at 38 years old.
Cancer patient.
Right, basically.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so low that it quote unquote flagged on the blood work. Like,
because you're still on the optimal levels.
Optimal in big air quotes, right? And I knew some things about this. My estrogen level was uber high, right? But it wasn't flagging on the, you are.
But you're probably still lactating.
No, I had sore nipples. Yeah. This is a weird thing. And I was on no drugs, no performance enhancing drugs. Well, I had gone through all this blood work through an endocrinologist actually, because I was like, I need to get to the source of this because my thyroid, like what is happening with this, all these weird symptoms I'm having. And I knew I wasn't sleeping very much. I knew I was super stressed out. So I knew those things were certainly contributing to what was kind of popping up here, but I don't know what I needed. I just wanted an answer. I needed to look deeper, and I really hadn't had any deep blood work done like that for myself ever. So I didn't have a baseline. Like, where did I come from? Where was I a couple years before that? Where was I at 25? Whatever. So I wasn't looking for like a quick fix or an answer. I just wanted to know, is there something wrong with me that I should know about before so that I can have some direction? Like, where do I go to next? And when these things were popping up, I was like, okay, so my knowledge told me well, that testosterone level looks pretty low for a guy who, works out and eats pretty well and, I still had drive, the things were kind of happening there, but that doesn't seem right. And like, dude, what's going on with this estrogen thing? Like, that's wild. I didn't see that coming. Like, that's really weird. And my inflammatory markers were good. My thyroid was fine let's just say my TSH was fine. This is before I dug a little bit deeper into knowing a little bit more about thyroid tests and the things that needed to be tested there to really get a good understanding of what was going on there. And I was almost convinced in my head that I had a thyroid issue because of the hot and cold things, and then some of the autoimmune stuff that I felt like I had going on. Really, at the end of the day, this was all stress. Yeah. This was all stress related. But
you caught a couple other things that were going on as well.
Yeah. And so things that I wasn't aware of. So I was like, okay. And I mean, the guy told me, he was like, this is something in the supplements you're taking. And I'm like, dude, I take a whey protein supplement, and occasionally I take a pre-workout because I was low energy, right? Like I was like, to get fired up for my workouts, I was taking something's in your supplement that's creating this testosterone, estrogen issue, and these other things. But I'm going to send you to an allergist, right? And let's just see if you're not allergic to something. So I went and did the whole allergy thing. I'm like, no, you got a clean bill of health,
Jesus.
right? Every blood pressure good, all, and cardiometabolically, everything's kind of there. No real issues. And so what I recognize is this is a lifestyle thing, and this is a sleep and stress issue, and I need to start working on this. So I started working on it hard. And what I recognized as I started to continue to do blood work is that the needle wasn't moving for me. And what I think I kind of realized was I was in this deeper hole than I was probably going to be able to climb out of, because I still had all the other things going on in my life, right? Like, there's still a divorce happening. Like, I'm still financially, this is really tough. I'm dealing with the kids and the custody, or the kid thing and the custody stuff and all that other thing, all the other stuff. I finally wound up in a doctor's office where I was like, let's maybe take care of this testosterone thing, right? And that
most doctors don't even want to talk about it
at the time. So we're going back like 12 years ago, right? And the guys that were doing that were their urologists, right? Because it makes sense, right? They're talking to dudes, they're later in life, they're having prostate problems, things like that. And it was a moneymaker for them, huge moneymaker for them. And I will not bore you with that story, but I got myself into like a 2-year process where this guy had no idea what he was doing, right? Estrogen got worse. Testosterone was up for a minute. Estrogen got worse. I was aromatizing. There was things happening there. And he was very suspect because of my physical condition that I was just there to get testosterone from him. And that was it. Like,
it's the same as the doctor telling me when I was 150 pounds, there's no way I had sleep apnea.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's like, well, have we run a study on this? Like, no. Like, I'm telling you, man, like, I'm really here for your help. Like, I just want your help here. And
just run a blood test.
This went on and on and on for a long time. Again, this guy honestly did not know what he was doing. And it took me, again, about almost a full 2-year process where I finally wound up in front of the physician that I have now. And I would lay down in front of a bus for this dude, because he really took the time to dig in, explain to me things, work through the process with me over time to figure out what the right formula was for me. And it wasn't a bunch of magic bullets, right? There's some very specific things that came in with that. Small changes. And he was talking to me about my lifestyle, right? He was talking to me about, hey, here's what we need to do on the sleep side of things. He was asking me, and by the way, this dude looks better than the two of us on our best day, right? At 60 years old, right? And that's he's awesome. Competitive athlete. He's doing, he's the guy I wanted to talk to versus the other guy that endocrinologist I had talked to. I don't think he'd ever seen the inside of a gym before in his life, kind of thing. And I had a little bit of a problem with that. I was like, I feel like you're judging me, man. Like,
it's kind of like, how can you have the personal trainer that's 300 pounds?
Dude, it's all of those things. So again, I'm afflicted with that, judgmentalness or whatever you want to call it, kind of thing. But I finally got in touch with the right person that was able to help me through the process, not just throw a script at me or whatever else. And it changed my life, changed everything.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is, all of a sudden, I was a little bit more mellow. I wasn't as angry, right? I didn't feel as stressed. I was sleeping better.
Less brain fog.
Way less brain fog. I don't think people understand what brain fog is until they don't have it anymore. Right. And then they look back and they go,
that's a very valuable statement.
And they're going like, holy shit, like everything's better.
This is what normal feels like.
This is what healthy feels like, is really what it is. So again, going back to that person that's reaching for Ozempic that's, 400 pounds or whatever. They don't even know what healthy feels like yet. So maybe we just get them back to a point where they start to feel healthy and they understand some of this work has worked for them, to where they come out the other side and they go, oh, this is what this is supposed to be like. And then there's kind of a new motivation. My point in telling the story is like, I needed help. The road to get that help ultimately that I needed was long, arduous, and wasn't fun. I went down a lot.
It didn't have to be that way.
It didn't. That's the bigger thing. It didn't have to be that way. And it was about finding the right people to help me. Yeah. So going back to networks.
Yeah. I did bring this up, but after my first medicine journey, I kind of got involved with some nonprofits, and I still do a lot of work with them today, helping veterans out. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm passionate about that. I quickly figured out, and not to keep diving into the plant medicine, but I realized overnight that plant medicine can give you the same results in one night that you can get in 10 to 15 years of couch therapy, mm-hmm. because it really gets to the root cause of the problem. So back to your hormone talk there, guys call me all the time that are retiring out of the unit, and friends. And, I try to stay in touch as best as I can. But the first thing I tell them is get involved with this nonprofit, get your blood work done, mm-hmm. get your hormones checked, because it's very, very common that 99% of the dudes coming out of our workplace, because of all the charges we set off and the concussions, they all have TBIs. Mm-hmm.
Multiples that they wouldn't even know.
Hundreds and hundreds of TBIs from all the blasts that we dealt with. That damages your T and all your hormones, not just testosterone, mm-hmm. all of them. And, I talk about it in my sleep guide that we have on our website, but vitamin D is a big one.
Huge.
People don't ever check their vitamin D, and 90% of Americans out there, I don't know if that's the correct number, but a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D, and it is a hormone.
Basically.
It's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. Mm-hmm. It's a pro-hormone.
If people thought about it that way, they'd probably pay a little closer attention, but they don't.
And it's super cheap to supplement, right. And you just don't get enough vitamin D, and it can wreck your day.
Mm-hmm. When you boil down how many metabolic reactions are dependent on, or that D is involved with, like if people, again, an easy Google search will tell you this, right? But they don't think about it that way, and that can't be the answer. It can't just be the vitamin D, right? It's imperative. We learned that in spades a few years back when that thing called COVID came rolling through, and we recognized how many people had much better outcomes when their vitamin D levels were higher versus those that didn't. A huge implications there. Yeah, sorry, I don't need to go on that, but that when people ask me about supplements, if that one's not in there, right? Like I'm going, you're doing it wrong. Like there's things.
And the only way to know is to get your blood work
100%.
Done.
Yeah.
So, I stated this earlier. That's what my wife does for a living. So obviously I have a little bit of a leg up on that and her help, but that's what I tell every one of my buddies getting out. Go get your blood work done. There's a chance you need to get on some TRT or some sort of hormone mm-hmm. therapy to level yourself back out, even to be where you're supposed to be for a 40-year-old. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to make you a bodybuilder, get you huge, or make you 20 years old again. It's not about that, because the number one reason is it's affecting your sleep. Mm-hmm. And if you're not sleeping, you're killing yourself.
You're not recovering. Yeah, you're in what we call recovery debt. Recovery debt can be very dangerous over time.
Yep. And that's the one thing I've really become passionate about the last few years is, number one, my main priority in life is, outside my family and myself, is sleep. Mm. And I have also figured out the second biggest thing is doing everything I can to eliminate inflammation. Mm. Because end of the day, we could talk about this for hours too, but our shit food here in the US and all the metals that are in our water and everything else that we ingest daily, and the plastics and toxins and poisons, they cause inflammation. Inflammation causes cancer and all these other brain tumors and diseases. And
inflammation creates autoimmune issues. Yep.
You point back to any bad thing, health thing in your life, or anybody else that or just look what's going on and trending in America with all the different cancers. it all goes back to inflammation.
Yeah, I hit that point just real quick because I was aware of this, right? And I think people think of inflammation as something that happens as a result of something acute, right? And this is not. We're talking about systemic inflammation that happens from the piling on of all the things that you said over time. That the poison is in the dose, right? And if you're constantly dosing yourself over and over,
but we are unintentionally, no matter what. So we have to do the best we can to eliminate all variables.
That's the key. That's the key. Is not like it's not going to be perfect. Like, fun fact: worst quality in the state of California is right here in Santa Clara County. It's awful, right? You look at it like it's public record. You can look at it. It's terrible. The shit that's in our water, and we're drinking that. We're cooking with it. We're showering in it, right?
You're soaking it in. It's all angles.
It's coming from things that are environmental toxins are there, and those are some things you just are not going to be able to avoid. So, what can I control, right? And so I appreciate that, and it's before you get into any TRT, right, or any other type of hormone therapy or any other medications for that matter. You want to understand what that is because you don't want to be giving anything or putting anything in your system that could be feeding a problem.
Yep.
Right. So again, going back to, it's not just get your blood work so that you can get a prescription for testosterone. There's other things we want to know about so that we know, like, is this even appropriate for you right now? Or do we have other things we might need to address first? And I think that gets overlooked. And it always happens alongside the stigma of, oh, you're taking TRT. That's the answer. That's why.
No, it's not the answer. Yeah. It's one of the tools in your toolbox. And going back to your point about the magic bullet, nothing drives me more mad than somebody saying, writing a bad review that, hey, I took your nighttime tea and it didn't work. Yeah. I'm like, okay, let's back this up.
Right.
What are the 10 other things that you did that day? Because your night of sleep tonight started the minute you woke up this morning. Because the first thing you need to do is you need to walk your ass outside and you need to get at least 15 to 30 minutes of sunlight before you go into the office or sit in your own office all day or whatever you do for a living. You need to get some sunlight because that is scientifically proven. It's going to set you up for the day. It's spiking your cortisol. It is also getting rid of your melatonin that you just had from when you just woke up.
Or took the night before.
Or took, yeah. It's doing, and you're getting your vitamin D. It does so many things to start your day off right. That's step one. And that happens right after you wake up. How many monsters did you sit there and pound after dinner while you're playing video games until 10 o'clock at night?
Or even at 3 p.m. when you felt that low energy.
Yeah. How many whiskeys did you have with dinner? Like, don't talk to me about my tea not working until you're honest with yourself and you stop making excuses. And that's why I came up with the sleep guide, because there's at least no less than 10 minor changes you can make in your life, in your sleeping situation. Your room needs to be like a cave. It needs to be dark and cold. And if you're not sleeping like that, you're wrong. Sound machine if you need to, delta waves, frequencies. Frequencies are in our life. We put off frequencies. They help your brain relax. There's so many things you can do, so many small changes. This goes back to not making excuses. Start making these small changes that become habit, that become a part of life. And over time, your sleep's going to get better. Take the sleepy tea. Don't drink 4 monsters after dinner. Play video games and think that a cup of tea is going to put you down hard for the night.
It's going to untangle that sticky web. Yeah. So we're getting into like sleep hygiene, and that it doesn't start that when you walk into the bedroom to go to sleep, right? We talked about circadian rhythm. There is too much science at this point on this stuff with regard to the efficacy of getting that daily sunlight as it relates to your vitamin D, regulating hormones, cortisol, melatonin, both hormones, by the way, all 3. Again, if we're going back to what we're looking at, vitamin D being a pro-hormone, it gets things going the right way. Hey, look, bonus, you could habit stack this and get your morning walk or cardio in while getting your vitamin D sunlight in the morning or whatnot. Like you can do a few things. Like you could make that phone call to your buddy and check in. You call your mom, for God's sakes. All of those things you can meditate,
And speaking of eating, that's the other big mistake I made for years.
What's that?
Late dinners.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never realized that until a couple years ago. Like, and again, it was me, HRV. What is HRV?
Yeah.
I didn't know shit about it. And I quickly realized I put 2 and 2 together. You eat late, you're spiking your cortisol late. Your body does not like to digest food while you're laying 10 toes up.
Right.
Like, we have a family policy now. We go for a walk around the neighborhood for 20 to 30 minutes after dinner, which we now eat dinner at 5:30 because we go to bed at 8. 3 hours is what you need, 2 to 3 hours minimum before you lay your ass down.
Yeah, I can already hear people making excuses about why they can't get this done. And I recognize like there's shift work, there's things that happen, there's late night soccer practice with the kids. You know, there's like last night we were at a basketball game from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Then there was an hour commute home, and then all of a sudden it's 7 o'clock. And you know,
now we got to eat dinner.
Now we're eating dinner. These things happen, but that doesn't have to be every day, right? Again, there's no perfection in anything, and I think people, you know, the enemy is good is perfect.
You can make excuses and say, "Oh, I can't 100%. Do that on Tuesday night, so I'm not doing it all week."
So you talked about sleep hygiene and kind of where it starts, and people understanding how simple things like, again, getting sunlight, getting some activity in the morning, post meal, timing of meals. You talked about, you know, turning that bedroom into basically your sleep cave. That's what you do, right? You sleep in it and you have sex in it, and that's what you do, right? That's it. There shouldn't be any TV. There shouldn't be any blue light, white light. It should be dark. We talked about temperature being cool.
We even went as far as getting rid of all of our LED lights because any little bit of light's a distraction. Yeah,
it is. I mean, I live in a complex where, you know, people come in late, and the dog does not like that. Like the dog knows, and we live close to our neighbors. So if they're talking or they're getting out of their car and making noise or whatever, she's up. Well, they come, if I go to bed at, let's say 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, right? And they roll in at 11, I haven't even dipped into my deep REM sleep yet, right? So we can go back to those levels of sleep as your body, there's a period of time basically to break this down and keep it really simple for people. There's a period of time where your body is starting to fall asleep and become relaxed. It needs to stay there for a while before it drops into a couple of different levels before it actually gets to a point where you're in a deep enough sleep where the body's repair system
recovery
starts to take place. That's when the things get downloaded in your brain, right? The brain recovers. It starts to send messages to go make the other things recover, like all the hard work that you did in the gym that day, right? And send things to where they need to go. And if it's interrupted at any point, you never get deep enough into the sleep to actually be, and you will go through multiple cycles of that. So if you're interrupting that at any point with anything, again, white lights, blue lights, like staying up late at night scrolling, right? And you're basically stimulating the brain. There's science behind this. There's people on either side of the bench or the aisle that'll say, hey, well, we don't have a lot of research there. Okay, well, if there's any amount of research that can support this, like, why wouldn't you try to eliminate how much screen time you're spending before you're if you just made the very simple decision, like when I go into my bedroom, I don't look at my TV, I don't look at my phone or whatever. I'm going in here to sleep or have sex.
Or I'm going to read a book for 30 minutes and maybe meditate, and then I'm going to be super calm when I do close my eyes.
If it just was like a no phone zone, right? You know, or whatever, and we left it at that, it would take care of a lot of problems. But you're thinking too deeply about this. Like,
it's not that hard.
Like, let's not try to find all the reasons why the research is wrong. Let's look at, like, what are they right about? Like, what is Josh right about here? Like, I don't think it takes too much, you know, I don't think it takes a lot of wisdom to start to think about, like, is me looking and doom scrolling, right, helping me go to sleep or keeping me awake at night? Yeah. Like, do I feel better when I'm done scrolling on my phone, or do I feel worse? That answer is the same for me every single time. Yeah. It's never better. Right. And yet we're stuck in front of these things all the time. So sleep hygiene being like a huge part of this in terms of once you have closed your eyes, right? Like, what's happening after that point so that you can start the cycle back over again the next day.
Yeah. I don't claim to be an expert.
I'm not either.
The only reason I bring this up is because it worked for me and I was in a really bad spot. And I, you know, undoubtedly dealt with a lot of sleep deprivation throughout my life. It was part of my life and my career. So I'm just trying to pass on my knowledge, but I always like to go back to, and I know you're of the same mindset. What did we do when we were in the caveman days, when we were hunter gatherers?
It's an easy place to take yourself.
We went to bed when the sun went down, and we woke up when the sun came up. We fasted a lot. I'm a big advocate of fasting. We haven't even talked about that.
Okay.
Autoimmune diseases. I've healed my own through doing 4-day fasts. I had psoriasis really bad for years, all the way up until I did my first fast. Gone. There is so many studies on fasting, and again, it goes back to caveman days. Like, I'm probably going to go a week before I kill that elk or whatever to feed my family for the next couple months. So every quarter, I'm probably going to fast for 3, 4, 5, 6 days.
There's definitely some value in this. And I think where it gets taken to the extreme is people trying to do this on the daily.
No.
Like again, so you're laughing and shaking your head, but you know where I'm going with this. Like, well, if fasting's good, then I should do it every day.
I just not eat.
Yeah. I'll just not eat, which takes you down a whole other path.
Yeah.
Well, so again, I opened it up with sleep. We've been talking a lot about it. We went down a couple of other paths there with hormones, fitness, right? Plant medicine. We obviously like eliminating alcohol, which seems very, again, go back to conventional wisdom. When you think about like, what does alcohol do for you? I think there's a really important social aspect of this for some people, right? And,
absolutely.
Right?
And that's where I went wrong too. Cause that was my job with Cry for years, was to take people out to dinner and drinks and have a good time. You know, it's business development and
then
sales.
go try to bed and then try to go to bed after that, right?
Yeah. Or be at SHOT Show and I'm out at dinner till 2 a.m. and then
SHOT Show
all week, 7-8 days in a row doing that.
Yeah, my first experience there was 3 years ago. I know what that's like now. I just know I'm not sleeping for a week. Yeah, right.
You know what I do, man? I plan early dinners with clients.
Yeah.
I'm in bed by 9:30.
I kind of chalk it up to that's the 1 5-day stretch out of the year where I'm completely unhealthy, right? Like, because I'm not sleeping, I'm drinking too much, I'm not eating regularly.
Eating too much.
I'm eating way too much. And by the way, it's like in 2 meals a day, right? I'll put down 2,000 calories twice a day, right? Versus, how I would typically eat. I'm inhaling, smoke and recycled air. I never see the sun. Like for 5 days, you don't see the sun or whatever while you're out there. All those things, I chalk it up as that. And I come home and then I'm usually sick. Yeah. Everybody's like, oh, it's the SHOT Show flu, whatever. It's the SHOT Show
COVID.
Flu. No, or whatever it is. Like, no, it's like the most unhealthy, filthiest environment you can be in. You're getting sick. You're going to get sick.
Yeah.
It's if you are already open, like if the system is already open to that, you're definitely getting something while you're there because of all the things we just said, minus any germs that anybody brought with them. But again, just going back, we opened it up with sleep. We talked about that and that being the biggest thing for you and recognizing like right off the bat, like when that got cleaned up, everything started to get better.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about elevated operator, right? And what you're doing there, because you mentioned the previous career, you got a couple of businesses going on, or you got a business going on with elevated operator. You also do some other stuff. You have a lot of, you're very business minded. We got the MBA, right?
For what it's worth.
For what it's worth, I get that. But at the same time, like we have elevator operator now, and that's how you came on the radar for me, right? And kind of what was going on there, because I've seen a lot of teams guys do different types of businesses, and we were having this conversation offline, and the ones that always intrigue me the most are the ones that are always trying to give back somehow, and they recognize the challenges that guys that are still in and the guys that are out have, right? And they're trying to find solutions for them. And oftentimes there's some, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like you're trying to do or provide back to them what help them, and if they can just get through the hump, like the rest of the road becomes a lot more clear for them. And you've kind of already outlined a few of those things. But let's talk about what you're doing here, man, and what's going on with the T's, the battle buddy stuff, and whatnot. Like, what can you tell me? Because it all ties into what we've been talking about. It's not a magic bullet, but there's some cool stuff going on with it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I'll start you off with one of my favorite quotes, Denzel. I told Brent this one too, but it really sticks with me throughout what I'm doing here. His life philosophy is 3 very basic principles, and it's you learn, you earn, and then you return.
Okay.
Right? So we spend our 20s, 30s, 40s learning, earning, And now I'm in the phase of where I'm still earning, but I'm also in that phase of returning back to the community. And I started Elevated Operator because it was products that helped me. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I never was, once in a while. But I said, hey, green tea and some of these other herbs that I was turned on to in various journeys that help with heart health and circulation and reducing inflammation again. That's what our daytime tea was all about. And really good, clean energy and caffeine without the spike and the drop off and the crash. So that's why we developed day ops. Night ops is a no-brainer. There's so many sleepy teas on the market and sleep aids. I wanted to get away from everything that was medicinal. The VA had me on trazodone for years until I started having seizures. And I was like,
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. My wife, right after I first met her, you can ask her, like, she heard me flop over in the bathroom in the middle of the night taking a piss. Next thing I know, I woke up and I was in the ER. And I was I passed out and started having seizures from the trazodone.
Wow.
And concussed my head. I was bleeding all over the floor. She thought I was dead.
It's another TBI.
Yeah, another one. Like I needed another one. So I had to get off all sleep meds, still in a bad place, sleeping, trying to figure that out. I turned to tea. I started sleepy teas. And then I was talking to one of my shamans who's an herbalist.
Okay.
He's like, hey, man, you need to try these other couple ingredients that nobody else uses, but they're very key to sleep. And if you look at our ingredients on there, there's things like passion flower and skull cap, and nobody else knows about that stuff, or they just hasn't caught on. So we use very high quality ingredients, stuff that I use every night. And really what makes me proud and happy I started this is I still get texts from friends every day that are like, hey, I just tried that out, man. I've been on this for a month now. It's really helped me out and changed my life. There's been a couple emails and texts that have actually brought tears to my eyes. Like, man, we are on the right path here. I'm doing good work. I got to keep this going. Same thing with the Battle Buddies. It's a blend of mushrooms, functional mushrooms. And I don't want to say too much about that, but it works. It calms anxiety. There was a survey done last year that over 4 million Americans admitted that they microdose daily, which means it's probably at least triple that or quadruple. It works. I can assure you it works, and it has changed my life. And I know a lot of other people that'll say the same thing. So it helps me with my anger issues, helps me put in a nice calm mood most of the time. Also helps with creativity and my workload.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So let's talk first about like the daytime. So you mentioned a couple things just with regard to mental clarity, helping with circulation. And this people look at this in tea, man, like in plants. Like, here's the deal. Like I've, again, tried to stay very objective. Later in life, I became even way more objective about this, looking at like, let's look at Eastern medicine, Western medicine.
Absolutely.
Where are they both right? And where do we come to the middle on this stuff?
Like, just look at longevity, right? Who's living the longest?
Yeah.
It's the people in Asia and Southeast Asia that live off the earth and herbs and natural stuff.
There's so many things out there. And again, everybody wants a scientific study, and they want to find a scientific study that proves why this isn't true or why this isn't right. And I'm like, dude,
qualitative versus quantitative.
Yeah. I'm trying to find out what works. Like in any study that you bring me that says something, I can pick that apart and cherry pick things and tell you why, this wasn't the right population. It wasn't randomized control. Like, there are so many things that you can do there. It's the preponderance of evidence over time based on, I would just say, a huge population of people, right? You have to look at things. Now, that doesn't make it into a medical journal typically or whatever else. But when you work with enough people long enough and you've had enough experiences, you start to say things. And I'm not looking for confirmation bias on anything. I think that's natural for us to do as humans. I just know, like, there are some things, again, go back to like the mushrooms, that we could talk about that just briefly. But like, look, we know enough now to know that there's enough scientific studies out there that, in fact, even more like when we specifically talk about the VA and looking at the use of psychedelics which are the different mushrooms and what's going into this, right? What's going in your product here. But we look at psychedelics versus some of the other ones, like there is some really good evidence, right? And really good research that's going into this. And they'll accept that. But then you look at it like from like, well, yeah, but this supplement, like it's just a supplement and that's not going to do the same thing. No, it's totally different, man. We're talking about something different, but people have a tough time making those distinctions.
And you got to figure out what works for you.
100%. And again, there's no one size fits all. There's no one solution for anything. But I think there are people that are doing a really good job. And I'm very critical about where people, number one, products. I see that anybody can come out with a product. I've been around the fitness industry for a long time, the supplement industry for as long. At one time I'd taken everything there is to take, both, let's just say, illicit as well as, what you can get over the counter type of stuff. Tried a lot of different things, dabbled in a lot of things. And, you get involved with supplement companies, you find out the type of stuff that they put in there, where it's coming from, how it's sourced, all of those things. And you start to, when you learn about the industry and you learn about the process, you start to get a little bit more critical about, I'm not sure I really want to be putting that in me. And number two, like, I'm really not sure I want to be spending my money on that. Like, what am I really getting out of this? Is this placebo or is there actually any efficacy in this? And so I deal with some very, very specific supplement companies now. And when I buy products, even my coffee, so we're going to talk about like caffeine for a second here. Coffee is one of those things. It's so ubiquitous, like it's everywhere, right? Everybody's drinking coffee. What people often think about is like, where is it coming from? Like, I just need caffeine. All right, well, do they care? Yeah. Right? And going back to the micro doses of things, or the dosage of things being the poison, when we talk about inflammation and things like that, coffee has one of the highest uses of pesticides of anything out there. The other thing that when you look at it, also has a great deal of mold. And the reason it has that mold is because when it's picked green.
And then it's transported and it sits on these containers for a long time.
And even before that, like it'll sit in the fields, right, for a long time. So what else is happening there? Well, animals are coming along. They're pissing on it. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on out there environmentally. It's being sprayed again. They're also reusing bags, right, that they used for the previous coffee, right, which also had pesticides on it. So you're not just getting the pesticide from what was sprayed on the crop, you're getting the pesticide from what's actually in the bag, right? That's still in the bag from the residue from the last one and the last one. There's even coffee companies out there that I know about that I've used that are very specific about that. They test before it leaves and they test when it arrives. So we make sure it is testing clean for all of this stuff. And it's sourced from a very specific place in a very specific time. So my point in saying all that is like, not all products are created equal, right? And when you look at the dosages of things that are in there, when it comes back to like, what am I trying to get from this? Am I just looking for caffeine? Well, fucking drink the Monster, right? Because there's 250 milligrams or 300 milligrams in one of those. If that's all you're looking for, that's fine. But you're onboarding a lot of other things that you should be aware of, right? Are those things inherently unhealthy? Maybe not. Depends on who you are and where you're coming into this process. But going back to things like inflammation or what you might have going on at the gut level.
And that's my big thing with coffee. It's like, I already have a high acid profile in my blood. I'm a high pH or low pH, I guess it is. And the acid in coffee doesn't agree with my stomach. So that's why I always look for something else. And to your point on the pesticides, all the ingredients that we source for our teas are all certified organic. Mm-hmm. So we know they're not getting sprayed down. Mm-hmm. And end of the day, like, we know this. Look at Western culture versus Eastern culture. Like, green tea is so much better for your body overall than coffee.
Yeah. So nobody's saying that caffeine is bad, right?
Right.
From an ergogenic aid perspective, there's not another more studied ergogenic aid on the planet, and there probably never will be. Creatine's getting close. That's number two. We know there's a lot of good things that are coming along with that. But at the same time, like, look, caffeine is not bad. Like, it's okay. Right. But like, where are you getting it from? Where is it sourced from?
And in moderation.
And how much are you getting?
And timing of the day.
And again, who are you and how does it impact you? Because not everybody's impacted by it the same. You might be able to drink 4 cups of coffee and be fine.
I got friends that are allergic to caffeine. Like, they can't even have a gram of it,
right?
Or they'll spaz out.
Yeah, it's like they're on meth, right? Things happen, heart palpitations, like all kinds of crazy stuff. So daytime tea, and let's talk about the nighttime, the sleepy time tea, because I think this is an interesting one too. Because I think when you mentioned something before, like being upset when somebody calls and says that you're or gives you a review and says that your tea didn't work. Talk about the nighttime tea and kind of like, what's the, you don't have to give the specific, formulation that's in there, but how was it put together? Like, what were you thinking when you did this? Because I know that there are things like people think like, chamomile is one of those ones that maybe like valerian root is another one that people will put in that will take in a supplement
just nailed
form.
It.
Okay.
So you go to the supermarket, there's probably 20 sleepy teas on the shelf. And I did my research. I drank most of them as just to try them out. I was always looking for something different to help me sleep than trazodone or meds, right? So I tried everything over the years. And again, we do use chamomile, we use valerian root, but I was like, what can we add to make this stronger and better? Because that's what we do, right? We want something stronger.
Yeah, more is better. Yeah.
More is better. That's the route I took with this. But what I really nailed down was there's a couple key ingredients the other guys are missing, the skull cap and passion flower. And we're open about the ingredients are on the back.
You know what's interesting? Like when you say like you're onto this and other guys aren't, I'm telling you, like just do a simple Google search on tea, like that helps you sleep. Like just type that in and the things that you just mentioned are coming up every time. Why aren't those other companies putting that stuff into their tea? I doubt it's because they don't know. It's just they just don't want to, right? And they don't want to put the time into it, and it costs money. Costs money to do that, right? And so that's what it really boils down to in the end. So yeah, you're putting the things in there again in the potency levels, right? That makes sense, not just so that we can say we put it in there, right? And I think that's another thing is like, look, I want more. And let's talk about this for a second. Let's just talk about the sleep thing, like to help you sleep. So let's break down.
To help you sleep.
Let's break this down. Yeah. So one of the hardest things for people is to actually go to sleep sometimes.
Anxiety, or they're thinking about work or business or the day.
So what are you actually getting
tomorrow?
So what are you actually ideally getting from the tea in that respect?
Yeah, what it's doing, it's calming you down. It's calming your CNS. It's lowering your cortisol in the meantime. It actually is making you a little bit groggy. Mm-hmm. There's nights I drink it, man, I can't keep my eyes open after 20 minutes. Like right. I'm out. And the good thing with that is, you can take a lot of drugs, trazodone, Ambien, that'll knock you out right away too. But what you're going to see, and this is where I kind of became a student of sleep, and it's as simple as an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring, because they are highly accurate. Like you can see how much REM you got, how much deep sleep, mm-hmm. and you're going to see, and I personally did, a marked improvement in your quality of sleep versus if you took medications. And you can track that over time. Let's not track it every night, but over time, in addition to the other small steps you need to take, mm-hmm. making your room a cave, mm-hmm. Eating dinner 3 hours prior to laying down. I'm a huge fan of sauna. Like, okay, I'm not going to go out and buy a $70,000 truck because I don't care what people think about me when I drive. I'm going to spend my money on longevity and feeling better these days. Mm. And you can appreciate that. Yep. So I went out last year. I spent the money on a nice sauna that me and my wife do every night, right before bed. And I got a cold plunge. Mm. So that's what I do in my evenings. And I firmly believe that, whether it's a cold plunge or just taking a cold shower right before bed.
Yep. That's a simple solution.
3 to 5 minutes, start off small, make it warm, and just continue to get uncomfortable.
Dial it down.
Because what that does is it shocks your body. It lowers your cortisol right before bed. It reduces your body temperature. We already know, it's proven, your core temperature has to be lower to get into that deep sleep. That's why we drop our room temperature down like a cave, 69 degrees or so. You want to be cold. And if you got problems with circulation in your feet, put some socks on. Your body needs to be cold to sleep well. We know this.
Yeah. So you're stacking things on here, and people again they may be taking little bits and pieces away. But
and I hope they do.
That's exactly the point I was trying to make, which is like, again, the review of like your tea doesn't work. There's a lot of things. It's the tea doesn't lower your. So I just want to be clear about this. So stick with me here. The tea doesn't directly lower your cortisol level. The tea starts to help your body start to trigger things that
Relax.
will relax, that then lowers that cortisol level, right? That's the goal. Like, it's not like I put this in and then I go take a blood test to see if if that's the study or the research you're looking for, does valerian root lower cortisol level? That's not what you're going to find. What it talks about is the calming effects, right? It's the same thing like the passion flower, right? The calming effects that it will have in terms of helping you downregulate, which is the start of the process to then get to sleep, to then where you can get into the deeper sleep.
And it does, right? It does help clear that anxiety and those racing thoughts.
Oh, trust me, man. Oftentimes I can lay in bed at night, like, fucking, how am I making payroll next week?
Right,
You know, could be one of those things. I went through that stuff where you're staring at the ceiling going, oh my God. Right. And like that will, in some cases, no tea is going to fix that, bro. Like,
I still have those nights.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it's about getting yourself into a place where the process begins, right? And you mentioned it before, the process actually begins in the morning, right? Yeah. At the beginning of it, there's a lot of things. And what are you doing to mitigate the anxiety throughout the day, the caffeine intake, right? The working out, the fitness, and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So we got daytime, nighttime formula on the tea side of things. And I know you guys were doing like the actual leaf and then the actual,
so I brought bags. You one of each here. So I prefer loose leaf myself because I got a cup top strainer and I can make it as strong as I want. And I always I let it sit for a good 8-10 minutes to make it really strong. Mm-hmm. But I travel a lot. Yeah. I fly almost every week. Yeah. I can't take all that shit with me. Right. So I was like, I told my partner, I said, we need some individual sachets that I can travel with. And other people were asking for the same thing. So yeah, we got loose leaf and we have individual serving that you can easily throw in your backpack and go. Yeah.
So it can go anywhere. All right. And they're light. They don't take up a lot of space. Again, so all your excuses about how I can't do that.
No more excuses.
No more excuses. All right. So you solved for that problem.
Yeah.
All right. Talk about the Battle Buddies, because this is an interesting product for me. I've seen people come out with something with things like in capsule form and some other stuff, but this is actually a chewable, which is interesting. And so talk about that and kind of where that fits into the lineup here.
Yeah. So first thing I'll talk about is you'll see there's a nice little inscription of the Roman handshake on there. Mm-hmm. That was important to me because we called it Battle Buddies, which has a lot of meaning behind it. You know, if you were ever in the military, like from day one in basic training, they say, hey, they assign you a battle buddy. Well, after you retire, we use that connotation of check in on your buddies, right? Every Wednesday, you know, it's a thing in the community. Like you're thinking about somebody, and I love to do this, man, because I've had too many friends commit suicide. Like I lost a lot of friends in combat on the battlefield, and I respect that, and that's what we were there for. And they went down in glory, right? However, I have a problem with the higher number of friends I've lost in the war after and civilian world that have just taken their own life. So, that's kind of what that means to me is check on your buddies, give a helping hand when you need to. Again, back to, that's why we started this, was to get these good products that work for me out to my friends. And on that note, you know, we do give a portion of the proceeds back to nonprofits to help with veterans treatments. Mm-hmm. I don't care if I make a dime off of this. We're at it a year now and I haven't made a dime. We keep dumping it back into the company just to keep it going because it's growing very rapidly. But my goal was never to turn this. It's always been a side project for me of helping my buddies out. Back to the tablets. As I mentioned, I've done a lot of plant medicine work and really working on myself. And that's where this went. After my first plant medicine trip, like 7 years ago, I dove into microdosing and had a hard time sourcing it, honestly. And I was paying good money for crap.
You should come here to the Silicon Valley because these tech guys up here, they love that shit.
Yeah.
They're getting it. It's everywhere here. Like the microdosing that happens at these big tech companies. I was saying, I like Meta, Google.
Oh yeah. Well, it started here.
I know it did. Yeah.
I mean, the whole.
Like, I don't think people really get that.
Yeah. How to Change Your Mind, Michael Pollan is a great book. And he talks a lot about, from the 50s through before even the 60s hippie psychedelic boom. It was happening here in Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. And then a guy named Al Hubbard was very tied in with a bunch of the CEOs. Mm-hmm. And, you can link this back to Tim Cook and all the Apple guys and all the Microsoft guys. They were young guys back when this revolution was happening and they were all dosing
in the garage where they were putting those companies
LSD
together.
and psilocybin. Mm-hmm. So back to how I got onto it, I knew I needed help. I really needed help with my mood and my anger issues. Even with the major journeys I was doing, there was still something missing on the daily. And for me, that was microdosing psilocybin. So Paul Stamets is very famous in the mushroom world, and he's kind of the godfather. He's got what's called the Stamets stack. We kind of do the same thing, but I'm not calling it the Stamets stack. I'm not getting sued.
Yeah, what is it? It's like niacin,
lion's mane.
And lion's mane, yeah.
Lion's mane's proven to really help with mental clarity and among other things. It's a very good mushroom.
Calming you down. Yep,
yeah.
100%. There's a lot of research on lion's mane right now.
Yeah.
And really, like, if you get into any of the like the adaptogenic stuff and nootropic stuff, you're going to start to find lion's mane in almost all of it. I mean, they're kind of putting it in everything now. It got really popular, and people recognize if I can put lion's mane on the label, even if they're barely putting any in it, people will buy it. But there's a dosage thing here, right? And there's a quality thing here that goes into this in terms of efficacy. So
yeah. So we set out. We have really good connections with the mushroom farm here in Southern California. Matter of fact, and our stuff has been lab tested, and we make sure we know the source of it. And the big thing, it goes back to, I was paying good money for shit before, and I said, we can do this better. Mm-hmm. We can make this a better product that's actually going to help people. So we have, to date, that I'm tracking, we have the only pressed chewable tablet on the market.
So that was the thing that shocked me. I was like, I didn't realize that when I saw them that they were chewables, and I've never seen it that way.
And they got a good citrus flavor to them. They don't taste like dirt or the earth. And they work, man. Like, you let me know what you think.
Yeah.
We've gotten great feedback over the year. And again, it's just one of those things that I do that works for me. I love it. And it's changed my life. And again, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, they'll buy it.
Well, I think here's the thing. When you talk about like mental clarity, right, and mood, those are two different things, but they're obviously directly related, right? If you're in a pissed off mood, your mental clarity is obviously going to be impacted. If you're in a great mood, like, things change the way you see things, the clarity on things that are happening right in front of you, or maybe happened yesterday, or you're thinking about happening tomorrow. Again, I don't have any scientific proof to say that, except for my own experiences.
Can you measure the amount of good energy coming off of me right now? You can't.
Right.
You can't. But you have it. You have great energy. And people, believe it or not, man, like, I noticed it after I did a recent journey. Like, I just got done doing some plant medicine, and I used to despise the people at TSA.
Oh yeah,
at the airport.
Oh yeah,
I despise them.
It takes work for me still. I got molested.
Because I travel a lot.
I got molested about 2 weeks ago, and it got under my skin.
And I always thought they picked me out because of my beard and tattoos, and I'm like in okay shape, and I'm like, they're just always picking on me.
Right.
And a few weeks ago, I went to the airport right after a journey, and I was like, they were so nice to me. This lady was like, Mr. Burton, can I come to this line? Come over here. Let me help you out. And I realized right then, it was me.
Yeah. It was how you presented. Even
it was my energy was always bad, man. I was just off.
Yeah.
And like,
well, it's almost like you're expecting for it to be bad.
Yes. And it goes back to your thought process and your mentality and the energy you put off into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is so true. Can you measure that?
No.
Is there a study you can do on that?
No.
But I'm telling you, it is fact.
Yeah. So again, going back to the mental clarity piece, and again, we talked about nootropics or adaptogens and kind of managing yourself through a process, right? I think when people think mushrooms, they think things get weird. Like, they think that's weird. Like, mushrooms bad, right? Psychedelics.
You can if you take enough.
100%. 100%. Yeah. If you know anybody, or you are that person that's been through a bad trip or taken too much or whatever else, that's a really damaging thing.
Yep.
At the same time, like, if you can't calm yourself down and get through some rougher times, right? Or just even for like work productivity, which was going back to like the tech industry, they were recognizing like how much more switched on they were, right? And then
how much more they're thinking outside the box to solve problems.
Right, exactly. Outside the box is a really good way of looking at this. And this can happen in all kinds of things in life. Like, what is the problem, right? Is the problem me? Right? And what I'm trying to solve for myself today is the problem, the work problem. I need to sit down and write something. I need to come up with a new idea. I think there's a lot of merit in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to the tablet thing, I'd never actually seen it delivered that way before. It always comes in a capsule, or you're literally eating mushrooms, right? Kind of thing. And I was having a conversation with a guy like not more than a week ago, probably this time last week, actually. So maybe exactly a week ago, we were talking about the stack that you mentioned before, the formerly mentioned stack, and kind of how he was utilizing it in his own practice, right? And the things that he was doing basically as a healthcare provider, and the other people kind of in his circle that had kind of experimented with some things to kind of figure out what worked and so forth. But his ability to connect with his clients, right, during the things that he does, as a practitioner, switches him on, and he feels, and the clients were giving him feedback on how much better they felt, right? They had no knowledge of this, right? How much better they felt session to session once he kind of started implementing this thing in and dialing it in for himself. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's you can't measure that. All you can get is like some feedback from it, or really kind of sit back and maybe self-analyze it. But the tablet thing, can you just real quick tell the story on the tablet thing? We were talking on the phone the other day just about getting the tablets actually into the hands of the customers, and some of the stuff we ran into, or some of the stuff you ran into in the last year in terms of getting the product to market because of the actual tablet formulation, right? Or the actually creating the tablets themselves. Because you want to go to tablets, not you wanted to do chewables versus the capsules.
No, it's been a long process, and anybody that's ever been in manufacturing or any side business like this, it's always a process, man. It's number one key to success: surround yourself with good people, right?
Yep.
We all know this.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not easy. The first manufacturer we had was just kind of a bit of a clown show.
Okay.
And, it was all we had. But as we dove into this deeper and deeper, and, we've made better connections throughout this process. And, again, it goes back to finding the right people and, trustworthy people that you can rely on. And that's in business and everyday life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've definitely had our issues with manufacturing and, hurdles, if you will, but it's like anything else, man. It's problem solving, and you figure it out.
Well, that's part of the thing that's why I asked you to talk about it, because this isn't just something that was like, oh, we could do this really cool thing, and we just, we put the ingredients together and we let these other people do it, and it comes together. That's how a lot of companies that produce products work, right? They have some very smart people that understand how to resource some things, put some things together, make it at the cheapest possible price, right? Put it at the right price point. Then there's putting that product in the right place for it to be sold. Whether they got the back end to Amazon or whatever else, and they make a bunch of money doing a thing.
That was never us, nor our intention, because
that's my point.
We wanted to make sure it was always a quality product, and that was, having the right amount of ingredients and being able. That was the other issue I ran into with the stuff I was getting before. Is like, these hand jam capsules of, sometimes it's 50 milligrams and it's supposed to be 100, and other times it's 125. Like, This isn't something you want to play around with when I got to work that day and I really need a mood boost. I don't want it to be too much. And if I'm paying good money for it, like I want to know exactly the dose I'm getting. So that was my number one thing, was quality and accuracy in the product.
So I'm chuckling here, man. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just thinking back to an experience I had. So I was going through I have my lower back is a dumpster fire. I've got some pretty serious issues going back there. So I have to be
because you're too big,
super
man.
careful. That's definitely a true statement. At a point in my life, I was way bigger and playing way harder or not being super smart about that. And so now I have to deal with that for the rest of my life for being an idiot, basically. Like, what was that for? But the point of it is I was going through some pretty rough pain stuff.
Ugh.
And I had gone previously through a point where I'd actually had a really bad tooth infection, which created tons of problems. It was the worst pain I'd ever been in. I've had a lot of shit, broken bones, dislocations. I've never actually been shot, so I don't know what that's like, but I've been in the I was on a first name basis with the emergency room staff for a few years of my life there for just doing some stupid shit. And the point of that is this was bad, really bad infection. I lost 22 pounds in 18 days. Like I was sick. There was a bunch of stuff going on. And they had prescribed me Percocet. And I'd gone through this process, right? So I'd gone through a bottle of Vicodin, which I had experience with before through my other stuff. I'd never gone through the Percocet thing before. But I'd gone through a bottle of Vicodin like in about 5 days. And I was like, at that point, the infection was like raging because this was after a surgery that I had. It was infected before, then went through the surgery, and then shit just went downhill from there. So they give me the stuff, and I recognized this is going to be a problem for me. Like I don't want to take this stuff anymore. And so I had phoned a friend and I was like, hey man, like I know you're on the edible side of things.
Got some meth?
I know you're on the edible side of things. I'm looking for something to take the edge off. He's like, no problem, man. So he brought me over some stuff, some CBD, some THC stuff. And there was some chocolates. There was a few gummies or whatever in there. And he's like, try this one first, right? And break it in half. Right. And try this and see how that treats you. And so I kind of played around with some stuff. Well, I got to this one and they're supposed to have, the point of this is the dosage.
Yeah.
And,
you're a science project right now.
It's exactly what fucking happened, man.
Yeah.
Cause I put one of those things, it was the exact same amount I had taken before. Like this one was in a gummy because I'd tried these chocolates and I was moving on to these gummies, which you said were higher potency and whatever. So I'm doing the thing. So I'd had 2 of them already, but it was the third one I got to. I don't know what was in that thing. It was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. It was like a movie. It was like a bad movie. And I was like, it fucked me up. And again, this is the dosage that goes into capsules, tablets. How is this stuff being mixed? Where is it coming from? Is this happening on somebody's bathroom counter or bathtub or, garage workbench or something like that? Like what's going in there? And to your point, like, I'm trying to be better. I'm not trying to trip.
This is not something you should take lightly.
Correct. I'm trying to improve my mood and have better mental clarity. If there's anything in my mind that says like that I may not get that from this because it fluctuates from time to time, that's not a product I want to be fucking with. And
you're not putting a lot of faith in people either.
No, that's exactly right. And what's the liability, here? Yeah. So my point of that is like, I think people are fearful of this and they should be very concerned with this. And so that's, again, going back to like my experience in the supplement industry. I just gave you my little, tour story of like kind of dealing with the edible market and kind of what happens out there. And a lot of the shit that you get is trash, right? From a potency or an efficacy perspective. And again, going back to the dosage piece, that's stuff people want to be really careful of. And they should be. They should be very careful about this. And so.
And that, on that note, Scott, I should have mentioned this to you too, but our new manufacturer and our updated tablets, we even we scored these in half.
So you can cut them.
So you could easily bite it in half because maybe one's too much for you or you're not feeling it that day.
Yep.
And that's exactly why we did that, because dosage is very important and it depends on how you're feeling that day.
Right. Again, like I would be very careful taking any supplement of any kind if you're like law enforcement, military, or first responder type of stuff. Obviously, that's important. But when you get into this stuff, like you should do your research. And I think if you do it long enough, you're going to see a lot of similar things, and then you're going to see some really specific things. And the dosage stuff and the quantities of what they're putting into things, I think are super important. I think people lose track of that. I think they look like, what did my buddy take and how did that treat him? And they don't know what they're getting themselves into. And I think you guys have done a really good job here. And I also like that there's not 700 SKUs.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we do a couple of things. We try to do it
well,
really, really well.
Yeah. And again, man, the big picture, it is helping guys out. It's helping people.
Yeah. So go back real quick to kind of the contributing back and kind of where this is going in terms of, the organizations that you work with. And I know there's SOCF is in there in terms of who you're working side by side. What do you want to say about them?
Yeah. SOCF is a amazing organization. The kind of their mantra or their motto is they pick up care where the VA leaves off. Mm-hmm. And, back in my early days and struggles after I got out, one of my best friends, he runs that organization. He's the director, and, him and I have known each other for 30 years now, but he kind of helped pull me into that and get me some help when I needed it, when I was asking for help. And, as a lot of guys do, and whether they know they need it or not, we help with everything from hormones to sleep to hyperbaric therapy to family counseling to basically whatever the guys need to get back on track and get their health and wellness going right and get their head right. A lot of TBI treatment stuff. So yeah, it's a great organization, and really there's not much they can't do. And, it's funded. It's a 501c3, privately funded by donors who are real patriots and care about the veterans, especially the guys in the soft community.
What, if any, restrictions exist for, folks getting that help? Like what are the challenges or the things that they should be prepared for? I don't want to say restrictions. What are the things that you can help people prepare for if they're like, look, I'm ready for help now? Because one of the things that I found in my conversations with folks, particularly in the first responder community, when they're looking for help, there's a lot of fucking roadblocks, man. And you put up any kind of a roadblock for folks, it just puts them that much further away. Like, you cannot make this difficult. There needs to be a straight line, to who do I call? How do I get there? I mean, I know that you don't run that organization, but in terms of your own experience and whatnot, what do people need to know about what that help looks like and what that process looks like? Because I think it's one thing to say, hey, there's people here to help you and here's the number to call or the website to look up, but they're not prepared necessarily for the things they need, the work they're going to need to do in order to see that process through.
Yeah, I think, obviously SOCF itself funds a lot of the treatments, and they point you in the right direction to other nonprofits that actually do the treatments.
Yep.
As far as like the individual, number one, he has to want to be helped. That's really the biggest problem in my mind. A lot of guys are still in denial. I was there myself. Like, I'm on this crazy train, man. I'm not jumping off of it. Like, just let it go. What happens, happens. So sometimes it's like, me or somebody else pulling a buddy aside, like, hey, you need to get your shit together.
Okay.
And here's how you can do it. I'm going to connect you with this guy at SOCF or wherever. So that's the number one thing, is getting the guy to realize he needs help.
Okay.
And then you're right. There is some work you got to put in. Every treatment facility or treatment modality has paperwork you got to do, right?
Part of the process, man.
Yeah. You got to put the work in, and it doesn't end there. Like, again, they can show you the work, but you got to do the homework afterwards. And even after a lot of these treatments, there's a reintegration, and it's continued work after that. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is, if you truly are trying to make yourself a better person and optimize yourself for your family and yourself, you got to continue to put the work in. It doesn't stop here just because you went and did some plant medicine. or because you went to counseling or therapy with your wife. Like, it's always work, man. We're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but the best we could do is strive to be a better human and a better person. End of the day.
I know several people that have gone through that process and are continuing to see it through, right? So when I say gone through the process, gone through what you've described and are continuing to go through it. I've also seen those that were looking for the magic bullet. They went through it and
they feel good for a little bit.
Yeah. I don't want to say it made it worse, but it gave them this false, this was on them, right? They walked out with this, oh, I'm okay now. And then thought they could do these other things, right? Or get involved, stay involved in certain things, and then weren't able to see that process through, and kind of it just the
back on the crazy train,
vicious cycle.
I'm guilty of it myself, man. I did my first plant medicine ibogaine treatment 6 years ago now, and for 3-4 months after that, I was great. I was on a cloud. Hadn't touched a drink, alcohol, and then right back down into it, back into the anger issues.
Slippery slope.
Yeah, just being an asshole again all the time and feeling like shit, not working out, So I was good for a while, but I had to go back to that again. Not that same treatment, but I knew what I had to do at that point. The writing was on the wall. It showed me the answers. I just didn't put the work in. Mm-hmm. And I went right back into it, 6 months later, and said, hey, I know what I got to do now. And after that, I decided I'm going to put the work in. I gave up drinking. Mm-hmm. I knew what I had to do for me personally. And it's still a struggle, man. Again, I'm not perfect. I still have to put the work in every day. And I do that, but I feel 100 times better now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like, who likes feeling like shit and being an asshole all the time? I get where it's normalized. I've been there. I've been there to some extent. And when I look back, I didn't like that. Like, I didn't feel good doing that. And again, I think I pushed I did things, like I did a lot of working out. Like, that's where I got my energy out. And I felt like that was helping me, but in the end, it wasn't. In fact, it was hurting me because I was overtrained and under recovered because all those other things.
You're a deficit.
I was in a deficit. I was in recovery debt constantly, which created the issues that I had that I already described. And then ultimately I had to get help for, and then took couple years for me to work out of that. I mentioned the terrible process with the first doc, and then I got into the second one. Well, that was another year. Once we're like, we got to figure this out for you. This is not just we do this and this fixes itself. There was a lot of things. And now I have the new normal. I know what that is for me. And I know how to dial or twist this dial or
toggle. It's a much better life.
Oh, so much better. Yeah. It's pretty empowering.
But to your point, there is no magic bullet. No matter what we're talking about, there isn't. End of the day, you find what works for you, you stick with it, and you continue to put the work in because you know it's working. And it might not be, and again, it goes back to those macro level changes and not micro. Don't expect shit to happen overnight, because it won't.
Yeah. I don't know if I said this before, but what was in my head was, sometimes things need to be taken off the plate. You don't necessarily need to add more things onto your plate. Yep. So and the other part about that is I think people become very surprised that they can do way more with less, just in general. Yep. Like, how much do you really need here? Whether that's the dosage of something or the workout of something, the dosage of the workout.
Your 30-minute workout.
Again, go back to your heart rate and how that changed, your resting heart rate, and how that changed over time. Like, how much did I actually have to, I didn't have to go out and run a 10K 4 days a week in order to bring that down. It was simply doing 15 minutes, maybe 10, maybe 20, a couple of days a week at 4 a.m. or whatever time you're doing that at. In order to make that change over time, it's little doses. And a little work. So, that's what I love about this, about your products too, is that we're not talking about, making a huge change. We're talking about heating up some water, right? As part of your process. Like, if you could fit that into the day, right? Like, you heat up some water and make some tea, right? Or whatever before you go to bed, as long as you're doing all these other things. I'm not stacking things onto your day with this. It's just something that
incorporating.
But it's the larger message that comes around it, which is like, hey, here's something that may be helpful, but there's all these other things that you can be doing. So when you get on like your website, you have like a roadmap for here's how you here's some sleep hygiene tips.
The sleep guide, yeah.
Yeah, there's the sleep guide there. It's really well laid out. It's simple, easy to read. It's a 1-pager. It hits all the major points. It doesn't say that you have to have tea, right? Yeah, it just comes along with it.
Here's the other thing too, like placebo effect. Let's say my tea doesn't work, and it's just another shitty tea off the shelf.
But you're sleeping better.
Well, here's the deal. You just nailed it. Like, you're going through a nightly routine now. You're conscious and you're aware, hey, it's bedtime.
Right.
I'm getting ready for bed. I'm going to make my tea. I'm going to wind down. While I'm making my tea, I'm going to do a 3, 4, or 5 minute cold shower. I'm going to read a book instead of desk scrolling, right? I'm winding my brain down, lowering my cortisol at the same time. I'm prepping my body for bed. It's part of a routine. Even if the tea doesn't work, it's helping you with that routine.
Yeah, I think it's a mental. It's a fair statement. You're stacking wins.
Yeah,
this is what you're doing. Again, going back to stacking the little wins rather than feeling like you have to win all the time right now. It's like, again, go back to making the bed in the morning. It starts there.
It does.
What's next? Yeah. And then the next thing, and then the next thing. And it's not adding a bunch of things to the plate. So, it's about finding a workable routine and not reaching back to something that may have worked for you before, like trying something new and being open to that. So listen, man, I mean, I could talk to you for hours, right?
For sure.
This could go on a couple different paths. And, I mean, there's a little bit about like, you're still with your connection to the people that are inside that community, as well as what you're doing outside, that I think brings a lot of relevance to this. Cause I'm sure you're still seeing people on the daily, talking to people on the daily.
I ran into one of my, teammates in the airport on the way here.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, it was out of the blue. I talked to him 2 weeks ago on the phone, and he travels a lot for business, and I'm sitting there actually texting you, and he walks up.
Is that right?
Happens all the time.
I wonder if I know this guy. We can talk about it off air.
Yeah.
We can talk about it off air, or know who he is anyways. But let's talk about just real quick. I mean, give the deets on, how people can find out more about Elevated Operator, where they go, and, how they find out more and how you want them to learn about it, I guess.
Yeah. So far, it's just been mainly word of mouth. Like, we don't do a lot of advertising. I did a podcast with Brent Tucker previously and got the word out pretty good about it. But elevatedoperator.com, you can find us online, our website, and nothing special about it, but you can order the products there. Or we also have an Instagram where we make some funny posts once in a while.
Okay. Got to do the Instagram thing.
Yeah, and I'm horrible with social media. I actually despise social media. So my partner handles that side of it. But yeah, we got an IG and we got a website, and that's about it, man. Other than that, it's been word of mouth.
Yeah, that's the best kind.
Yeah,
that's the best kind, especially when you're doing something like this and the reasons you're doing it. It doesn't look disingenuous to me at all. Looks very it's very professional, but it's also very cut and dry. There's no smoke and mirrors here. There's no bait and switch type of stuff.
And I said, I told you this earlier, man, nothing makes me more happy and keeps me going with this as a complete side project than getting an email or a text from somebody I know or don't even know. Like, bro, this changed my life. I am sleeping so much better. I feel great. Or the mood tablets have really mellowed me out. My wife and my kids notice a difference in me. Like, that makes me happy, and that keeps me going.
Yeah, I get that. Occasionally I'll get similar stuff on the.
Oh, absolutely. In the workout world here,
there's no. Yeah, I haven't.
It's gratification.
I haven't had, I haven't had any pain in the last 6 months. I haven't gone the last 6 years without pain. Those kind of things. Like, there's not a paycheck. There's no revenue line on any kind of a P&L.
That's why we do what we do, right?
Yeah, 100%. So that said, man, like I said, I could talk to you for hours, but I appreciate this conversation. I think it's one, I'm very careful. I think I mentioned this to you when I first talked to you. When I was first brought into and this happened very specifically with first responders with regard to mental health. I saw this huge need. I was like, oh my God, like I knew some things, but I didn't realize the depth of this. When we talk about things like suicide, depression, divorce rates, all the things that kind of come along with it. with the career path and things that sort of, I guess, unfortunately sort of naturally exist there because of shifts
it's the norm.
Job. And unfortunately, it's the norm. And so I've had some guests on to be able to talk about it. And I had some opportunities to maybe interview some other folks or talk about it. But what I recognize, you need to be really careful about this, because I think there's the right way and wrong way to handle it. I think there's an awareness piece, but then there also has to be a solutions piece, and talking about all the other work that exists can't just be about like what happens when you get to the end. We need to be talking about like, what do we do in the meantime? Like those people that are able to help themselves that may not ever get there to that really bad day where they're sitting on the edge of their gun, edge of their bed with a gun in their hand or something like that. You know, at home, what are the things? And you just hit it. It's some foundational or fundamental stuff that we talked about. And it's rewiring your brain a little bit, different kind of mindset. It's finding some routine, right, that makes sense, filling that routine with things like fitness and sleep hygiene and, you know, getting your blood work done so you have a baseline, finding a network of people that can support you, not sign off on your bullshit. Occasionally get that phone call or that text message from that buddy that says, hey man, how you doing? A lot of that gets glossed over, you know, because we're talking about the treatments. And I think like what happens, you know, at the end, but there's so many things that you can do to self-help yourself before you ever get to that. Not that those things can't be a huge part of it. You covered a lot of things from your own perspective, right? Of, again, what helped you and how you kind of found your way through it. And I think that's what people probably need to hear more, right? It's not like you need to get yourself in this situation where you can get this help, like this treatment, this ceremony, this whatever.
Do you know the number one thing that establishes human bond and connection?
I'm not sure I do.
I would have thought it was love, right? That would make sense.
Okay.
Like, I love you, man.
I'm thinking about this. Like, yeah, I mean, as humans, we communicate, right?
Right.
So that's where I would go. And so I think that happens in a few different ways, but that's the best I can come up with right now.
Yeah. Studies have shown, and this kind of blew my mind too, but it makes sense. The number one attribute to human connection and bonding is authenticity. And I hope that's what I'm bringing here to everybody. It's not about how cool I am or what I did in the past because I was an operator in the unit. I don't give a shit about that. I'm bringing authenticity to this conversation and the fact that I laid out my past and my struggles and my issues, and I threw that out on the table. And I'm just telling you, this is what helped me out. And I'm giving you the steps that I took. And I'm giving you a sort of a roadmap of those basic things that you can do daily to try to help yourself, because that's the last thing I want is to lose more friends to suicide. I was there myself, man. I can't tell you how many times I had the fucking Glock in my mouth. And I don't ever want to go there again. Like, I am blessed that I made it past that. I'm blessed, and I have extreme gratitude for my wife and my family because they keep me going. They make me want to be a better person, right? So it's time for me to give back my experiences and be open about them, because guys need to hear that authentic conversation. And I've heard it from other people from my last podcast with Brent. Like, man, that's what I needed to hear today. Like, I'm right in your shoes where you were at before. I appreciate you being open and honest about that. And if I can save one person's life by doing this, that's worth it.
That's why we do the podcast, man, is just to make sure we're getting those very real conversations out. Not all the conversations I have in this room or otherwise are for everybody. But I said this to you before we started. If this reaches even one person and it makes that kind of an impact, then I'm grateful, right?
All day long.
Yeah. And you mentioned the word, like, I feel extraordinarily fortunate to have you even want to share time and come in and do this here with me today. So again, I'll say it again. Thank you so much for bringing the energy, for bringing the authenticity, right? And the part of that authenticity, I think, is honesty, right? And just humbleness to the table, literally and figuratively. Again, I think that's what people want to be on a fly on the wall to hear when they're in that moment. And again, if this reaches somebody, and they need help or whatever, if it's helpful, I'll just put it out there. You can DM me. I will try my very best to connect you with whoever I can connect you with. If you need somebody to talk to, then reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, like talk to somebody. Again, the whole thing about alcohol and like just drinking less is not the answer for everybody. We don't have all the answers here at the table. I never do when we have these things, but you got to get started. Like you got to show up. You got to show up for yourself, and you got to get it done. And I think that's what you put on the table.
Do something.
Yeah, do something, man. and thanks for what'd you say? Learning, earning, and returning. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. This has been nothing short of amazing, and always appreciate our conversations. We're definitely on the same page with a lot of stuff, and I love chatting with you anytime.
Likewise, man. If there's anything that I can do to help you with Elevated Operator or anything for that matter, getting your message out or connecting people or whatever, whatever that could be, I am happy to do it. And I'm always here to do that with you and for you, man. So I appreciate you.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Love
man.
you, brother.